Chapter 1860. The movie's popularity gave Yoon Shusha a taste of instant fame. Attention, instant fame. The momentum of her fame caused her net worth to soar again and again. The considerable benefits brought by the movie were different from her previous experiences of being famous. It was immeasurable. Previously, Ju had hyped her up. While bringing her fame, it also brought her a lot of abuse and humiliation. But now, she had used her abilities to prove to those doubtful gazes that an actress could be good at acting as well as having good looks. Lin Fengtian was sincerely happy for her. After a roadshow, backstage, he said to her meaningfully, "Shusha, congratulations. You're really famous now. But at the same time, I hope that you don't become arrogant just because you're famous. Many celebrities often lose themselves after they become famous. I hope that you don't change your original intentions and continue to hone your acting skills. You will definitely become a big shot in the future. The title of Best Actress belongs to none other than you." Yoon Shusha thanked him again and again. She cherished Lin Fengtian's recognition of her talent. His appreciation of her naturally made her feel flattered. If there was a chance to work with him again, it would be the best. He was her mentor and good friend, as well as her talent scout. What moved her even more was that Lin Fengtian had made an exception and signed an agreement for her to share the profits. She was the only actress in the cast who could get a share of the profits from the box office. What did that mean? If the box office hit 1 billion, she would get a share of more than 10 million yuan. That was already considerable. Moreover, the box office was still rising. No one knew how high the final result would be. Maybe there was a chance to break the domestic box office record, and the chances were very high. Ju was very indifferent to her sudden popularity. Or rather, it could be said that this was within his expectations. The person he liked had to be very outstanding. He had already foreseen that she would become famous, so he was not too surprised. "Shusha, you will become even more famous." He only said this one sentence. The popularity of the movie came with an endless stream of advertising contracts and gold medal offers. Many film crews and advertising companies took a fancy to her rising popularity and offered her an 8-figure endorsement fee, which left her flabbergasted. Therefore, the advertisers who had signed the endorsement contract with Yoon Shusha earlier were secretly delighted. Previously, Yoon Shusha was still considered a nobody. Although she was a little famous, her endorsement fees were naturally not comparable to those of the A-list starlets. Therefore, most of them were only a few 100,000 or a few million. Louis Vuitton's 10 million contract was already the maximum. This was all because of Mu Yaja. But now, with hundreds of millions of box office earnings, she had become a hot commodity in the eyes of advertisers, and advertising contracts had been thrown at her one after another. At the same time, many high-traffic program groups also invited her to appear on their programs. For a moment, she was in the limelight and became a popular young actress, attracting the attention of everyone. More and more audiences noticed this newcomer with good acting skills, and she also attracted the attention of many well-known directors. She received so many offers that her hands were about to go soft. Ju was very busy reading the script. Yoon Shusha also worked at night. She stayed up late to read the script, but the more she read, the more dizzy she felt. There were many offers, more than 10 scripts, and it was not a joke at all. There were web dramas, period dramas, idol dramas, palace dramas, and even spy dramas. Chapter 1861. Audience popularity and popularity were different. Most of the people who watched movies in front of the TV were middle-aged. Audiences at this age would not become fanatical fans, but their names would be familiar to the audience and increase their popularity. Popularity meant that the ratings and box office would be guaranteed. At the same time, it meant that one's value would rise. Value was like a stock. It would rise and fall. But if one accumulated strong audience popularity, one's salary would be guaranteed. What Yoon Shusha needed the most now was audience popularity. She had the popularity, but her popularity was not enough. Her box office appeal could not be compared to the A-list big brands. Therefore, she had to put in more effort in choosing the scripts. However, the scripts were of varying quality and quality. Yoon Shusha felt her head spinning. However, when it came to picking scripts, Chin-ju had a unique eye. When it came to scripts, he was extremely picky and strict. He didn't even look at some of the crudely written scripts, nor did he accept any of them. Most of the film contracts he accepted were usually made after staying up late to read the script and thinking it over and over again. A good script was difficult to evaluate. Although some scripts had low production rates, they were good scripts. Some scripts had high salaries, but to Chin-ju, they were of no value. She accepted 2 TV dramas and 3 movies. The most exaggerated thing was that her schedule was scheduled for 3 years later. When Yoon Shusha saw that her schedule was full, she felt dizzy and had mixed feelings. This was probably the mixed feelings after becoming famous. Facing the 7-digit increase in her account every day and the increasingly crowded schedule, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. For the rest of the schedule, Chin-ju did not stop to negotiate contracts for her. Yoon Shusha rushed for the promotional period of the movie. After becoming famous, the company requested her to update her Weibo more frequently. During the roadshow, she updated her Weibo more. Before bed, she updated her Weibo even more when reading the script. This was to increase her exposure during the movie screening period. Of course, the fans who left comments on her Weibo were much friendlier now. They were not like in the past, where they were constantly abusive. However, after becoming famous, gossip followed closely. Many people questioned whether her facial features were exquisite and whether she had undergone plastic surgery or gone under the knife. Many people questioned whether there was any unspoken rules behind the scenes for her to work with a top director like Lin Fengtian in her first film. Many people even suspected that she was trying to ride on Ji Yu Xingza's popularity by collaborating with Ji Yu Xingza on a dating program. Rumors about her and Ji Yu Xingza were also spreading like wildfire. However, most netizens felt that she and Ji Yu Xingza were a match made in heaven. At least, they were good-looking. Some of Ji Yu Xingza's fans even turned from haters to fans because of the movie The Green Apple. The lucky couple was also in full swing. Yoon Shusha's heart was in agony when she read those unfounded reports. She felt even more helpless. This kind of hype was really unfair to Ji Yu Xingza. But back then, she was the one who gave her permission to create a scandal. Although Chin-ju was the one who forced her, Yoon Shusha felt disgusted that she was trying to ride on his coattails. His head hurt. Hence, she looked for Chin-ju and expressed her attitude. "Chin-ju, can I ask you for a favor?" Chin-ju raised his eyebrows and asked, "What is it?" Chapter 1862. Chin-ju paused for a moment and furrowed his brows. "Why?" Yoon Shusha felt relieved after she said this. "Actually, all this while, I've been indifferent to the hype of a couple. There's clearly no ambiguity or feelings between us, yet we have to put on an act for someone we don't like. This makes us feel bad and hurts others. Moreover, I also feel that it's too unfair to Xingzhe to hype myself. It wasn't because she felt that such hype was worthless because she was popular. It was because she wanted to achieve success with her acting skills, not hype." Chin-ju was reading the documents beside him. He was so busy that he didn't even look up. He said indifferently, "I remember telling you that if you want to take root in the entertainment industry, commercial hype is very important. This is a way of operating. Even if you're popular now, you can't do without hype. After all, what matters now is exposure. If you don't have enough exposure, you naturally need hype to maintain your exposure in front of the public. So, it has nothing to do with who is fair or not. Moreover, because of the hype of the relationship, Xingzhe's exposure has also increased greatly. This is the best of both worlds. The so-called fairness doesn't exist at all, so you don't have to blame yourself too much. Moreover, the operation between you and Xingzhe is my decision and means. It has nothing to do with you." Yoon Shusha fell silent. She suddenly sighed and said, "But I can't get over it. Chin-ju, I'm already engaged. I have my own lover, and I cherish it very much. So, I don't want to hurt anyone, including Xingzhe." "Hurt?" Chin-ju couldn't help but laugh. "There's no such thing as hurt. Shusha, don't be too sensitive." Was she really too sensitive? Chin-ju looked up at her and smiled helplessly. "Besides, even if you want to hype it up, I'm afraid you won't have the chance anymore. What do you mean? Oh, don't you know? The team didn't release any more news about you and Xingzhe. Qin stopped what he was doing and told her the truth. On the surface, he said it casually, but there was a trace of depression in his eyes. What? Yun Shusha was stunned for a moment. She said hesitantly, then, those drafts. Qin eyes flashed with confusion. Then, he replied, those posts were created by marketing accounts, not by the team. Actually, there may be one thing I want you to know. Although the news hasn't been released yet, what I want to tell you now is that Xingzhe has been banned. What? Yun Shusha was flabbergasted. Banned? How could he be banned? I thought you should know about this. But looking at your attitude, you don't seem to know anything either. Looks like I've misunderstood you. Qin felt relieved. It seems that you really don't know about this. I don't know. Yun Shusha's face was blank. This news came too suddenly, and she was caught off guard. Why was Xingzhe banned for no reason? When did this happen? She had no idea at all. Chapter 1863. At first, she thought that Jiyu Xingzhe was ill and needed to recuperate. But now, it seemed that it was not that simple. Could it be that he was really banned? Since Qin said so, it was definitely not a joke. There was no need for Qin to lie to her about such matters. But, why was he banned? Yun Shusha looked at Qin in confusion. She felt a little lost and a little incredulous. Why was he banned? Qin suddenly became silent. Yun Shusha pursed her lips and carefully probed, is there any secret behind this? Or did he offend someone important, so he was banned? Shusha, let me ask you, do you know Jiyu Xingzhe's identity? Qin sudden question completely stunned Yun Shusha. She shook her head blankly, obviously not knowing. Have you heard of the Jiyu family in the capital? Yun Shusha's eyes glinted as she was rendered speechless. The Jiyu family in the capital? Although she did not know much about it, she had heard some rumors about the Jiyu family. The Jiyu family in the capital used to be in the underworld. Later on, they cleared their name and set up a listed company. Their power spanned across both the underworld and the underworld. Although they were not evenly matched with the Mu family, they were on par with the Mu family in the underworld. In the capital, the biggest family after the Mu family was the Jiyu family in the capital. The Jiyu family controlled the underground money houses and casinos in the capital. The Jiyu family's hired thugs gathered densely in the East Street and the village in the city. There was a saying that one would rather offend a gentleman than a villain. Although the Jiyu family was not a villain, if one offended the Jiyu family, they would have to experience the Jiyu family's vicious means. She heard that there was such a rumor in the early years. At that time, the son of a government official in the capital lost a lot of money gambling on the East Street and did not pay back his debts. When the thugs of the casino came looking for him, the son took advantage of the fact that his father was the leader of the government and was rude to the principal. He straightened his back and said fiercely, "My father is Dai Jianqing. Everyone in the capital knows the Dai family's reputation. You little hoodlums, don't you know who I am? You're here to collect your debt. Hee hee. Wait for me to tell my dad. Be careful, my dad will flip your East Street upside down." When the hooligans heard this, they looked at each other and smiled. They turned around and tied him up in the car and took him back. As for what happened afterwards, it was rather shocking. It was said that after this brat was taken back, his attitude was very tough and arrogant. He probably relied on his strong background and spoke in a very foul tone. He even threatened to raze the Jiyu family to the ground. When these words fell into Jiyu Jinglian's ears, it alarmed the great demon king of the Jiyu family. One could imagine what would happen to this kid. One of his hands and one of his legs had been chopped off. She was imprisoned and tortured for half a month. When she was finally released, she was tortured to the point of insanity. Finally, she was sent to a mental hospital to recuperate. This shocking kidnapping even alarmed the city leaders, but when they found out that the culprits were the servants of the Jiyu family, no one dared to say a word. Chapter 1864. Seeing this, Dai Jianqing was heartbroken. Hence, he gritted his teeth and wanted to find out who the culprit was. But when he found out that it was the Jiyu family, he did not dare to say anything and swallowed his anger. In the end, in less than a year, he was exposed for corruption and quickly fell from power. Of course, it was obvious who was behind his fall. From then on, no one in the capital dared to provoke the Jiyu family after they found out about their methods. As soon as Qin said this, Yun Shusha made the connection between Jiyu Xingze and the Jiyu family. Qin smiled and said, "Shusha, I can say this. With the Jiyu family as his backing, no one in the capital would dare to cause trouble for Xingze. Of course, except for the Mu family. Jiyu Xingze's meteoric rise to fame was not only due to his excellent singing and acting skills, but also because of his stunning looks, which made him a natural idol. More importantly, it was because of the Jiyu family behind him that no one dared to offend. When Jiyu Xingze debuted in the entertainment industry, his father did not approve of him at first. With the Jiyu family's reputation, it would be bad if word got out that there was an actor in the entertainment industry. But after Jiyu Jinglian took over, not only did he not interfere, he even started to pour a lot of resources into Jiyu Xingze. Everyone knew that some of the Jiyu family's power and assets were shady. Naturally, they needed a clean name. Although they had established a listed company, it would be too ostentatious if they invested a lot of money. Hence, Jiyu Jinglian set up a venture capital fund and invested a lot of money into Jiyu Xingze's movies. It could be said that this was the best of both worlds. Hence, the fact that Jiyu Xingze was able to stay in the entertainment industry for so long was inseparable from Jiyu Jinglian's support. Now that Jiyu Xingze had been blacklisted, even Jiyu Jinglian could not do anything about it. So, who else could have blacklisted Jiyu Xingze besides Mu Yaja? Yun Shusha sucked in a breath of cold air as she understood what was going on at once. "You mean?" Qin knocked on the table, but there was no expression on his face. Other than the Mu family, who else would dare to provoke the Jiyu family? Why? Yun Shusha couldn't figure out why Mu Yaja wanted to ban him. "Shusha, you're so smart. You should know why Xingze was banned." Qin eyes were unreadable. The meaning behind his words was self-evident. Yun Shusha was stunned for a moment. She suddenly thought of something and lowered her head helplessly. Both of them sat in silence, but they had a tacit understanding. I didn't want to end up like this, but, you know what? Xingze likes you very much, and for your sake, he's silently giving his all, but maybe it's just not fate. But this kid seems to have been bewitched. There are so many women, but it seems like he only wants you. Qin suddenly smiled and looked at her playfully. "I have to say, Shusha, your charm is really great. You're the only one who can make Xingze fall head over heels for you." Yun Shusha kept quiet. "But you don't have to blame yourself. This has nothing to do with you. He's the one who can't get over it. I've already warned him many times, but he doesn't listen. There's nothing I can do. I already knew that this day would come. If he doesn't restrain his feelings for you, he'll definitely anger Chairman Mu. Chairman Mu's ban was also within my expectations." Chapter 1865. "I didn't know that he has such feelings for me. You're so stupid. Can't you tell? Why do you think Xingze is willing to use his own resources to support you and give you such exposure when you just debuted? Do you think Xingze accepted the love diary when he never participates in reality shows?" Qin paused for a moment, his heart aching for her. "Can't you tell? Jiyu Xingze is just doing it for you. Even if it's fake or just an act, he wants to have you, even if it's just an act. Can't you tell? The love and doting he shows for you on the show is not an act at all." "Enough." Yun Shusha suddenly interrupted him. "Why is he doing this? If he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to accept it. What do you mean by acting? I don't want him to be like this. I only respect him as a senior. I don't have any other feelings for him. He'll only disturb my heart and cause trouble. I cherish my friendship with him, but he doesn't treat you as a friend at all." Qin frowned. Yun Shusha closed her eyes. "I know, but I feel even more guilty when he acts like this." Qin looked at her silently and suddenly smiled. "Don't feel guilty. If you really feel sorry for Xingze, don't see him again. Let him forget you and cut off his feelings for you. Whether it's him or you to him, It's a disaster. Do you understand? Yes. Don't worry. Chairman Mu has been merciful to Jiyu Xingze and didn't make things difficult for him. He banned him because he didn't want him to pester you anymore. That's all. When Yun Shusha left Qin Ju's office, she held her arm and was in a daze. Qin Ju's words were still ringing in her ears. All of Xingze's work has been put on hold. With Chairman Mu's ban, no production team dares to invite him to do shows. All the production teams have also removed him. I'm afraid he won't be able to appear in front of the public for a long time. After being frozen, he's now recuperating at home. I hope he can be alone and think it through. After Jiyu Xingze was banned, his Weibo stopped updating. The fans were extremely sensitive. After all, before this, Jiyu Xingze's update frequency was maintained at 1 update a day. Her fans were extremely worried about her Weibo that had not updated for 10 days. The most recent Weibo post had hundreds of thousands of comments. They were all asking why their idol had not updated for so long. Could it be that something had happened? All the fans were extremely worried. Some people even speculated that Jiyu Xingze was suffering from depression. Recently, he had been very quiet on the show. He did not have much energy, and the melancholy in his eyes made his fans feel as if their hearts were being stabbed by a knife. Some people even dug up the photos of Jiyu Xingze's pale and sickly face at the premiere ceremony not long ago. They were worried that their idol's body had collapsed from overworking. Some were also worried that Jiyu Xingze might have met with some mishap. In the end, the production crew of the Green Apple was alerted. They had no choice but to come forward and explain that Jiyu Xingze was ill and needed a long period of rest, so he did not want anyone to disturb him. As for the roadshow and the promotion of the movie, he would also be absent. The fans were extremely disappointed. Chapter 1866. However, everyone was well aware of the situation. Jiyu Xingze was indeed sick, but he might not be able to make a comeback after this retirement. Lin Fengtian was even more regretful. Qin Ju announced to the public that Jiyu Xingze was unwell. Other than Yun Sheshe, even Lin Fengtian did not know what was wrong and thought that Xingze was really sick. In the next few days, Yun Sheshe was extremely busy. She was busy with the promotion of the movie, the filming of Lethal Beauty, the promotion on Weibo, and the performance on variety shows. Her entire schedule was packed to the brim and she did not have any free time. After becoming famous, she could not adapt to the huge workload that came with it. It turned out that becoming a celebrity, especially a celebrity who became famous overnight, was actually such a tiring thing. A moment ago, she was still sleepy and in a daze. The next second, she was brought to the dressing room. After a lot of trouble, she appeared in front of the camera beautifully and cooperated with the media's interview with a smile on her face. After the interview, there was almost no time to breathe. She was quickly brought to the fashion magazine studio by Qin Ju to shoot a fashion blockbuster. At night, she had to rush to finish her scenes and was dragged by Qin Ju to read the script. She was so tired that her heart bled. During the busy break, Qin Ju teased her, "Shusha, how does it feel to become famous overnight?" Yun Shusha was so tired that she did not want to talk. She only rolled her eyes at him. Qin Ju was amused by her glare and laughed out loud. Of course, there were also things to be happy about. For example, the balance in her account had finally broken through the 10 million mark. In the past few days, she had negotiated a few advertising contracts and was earning money like crazy. 2 of the big advertisers had already transferred the money. She endorsed many products, from the small ones to facial cleansers, shampoo, and skincare products, to the big ones to luxury cars, department stores, and luxury brands. Because she endorsed a mobile phone, she had no choice but to replace her old one. The advertiser requested that she had to use their company's mobile phone whenever she attended public events, even if she was walking through the airport. Yun Shusha did not know whether to laugh or cry. Looking at her life, it was really full of ups and downs. She could not help but sigh. On this day, Yun Shusha had just rushed back to the set for filming. Today, she had a scene with Hua Jin. Ever since the two of them quarreled last time, Yun Shusha's attitude towards Hua Jin was much colder. As she and Hua Jin did not have many scenes together, they rarely had the chance to meet each other again. This time, she was returning to the set to act in a scene with him. Hence, in the dressing room, the two of them had a face-to-face confrontation. Shusha. Hua Jin had just walked into the makeup room when he spotted her. He happily walked over and sat beside her, nuzzling her gently. You haven't been on set for the past few days. Are you busy promoting the movie that has just been released? Yoon Shusha ignored him. Hua Jin's eyes were filled with desolation as he asked guiltily, why? Are you still angry about that matter? Yoon Shusha continued to ignore him. Hua Jin panicked and looked aggrieved. Okay. I know I was wrong. Next time, I won't make fun of you or tease you anymore. Yoon Shusha's expression softened a little. In fact, after what had happened, her anger towards Hua Jin had dissipated a little. Thinking back, he was obviously joking. She had naively believed him and could not blame anyone. Forget it. Chapter 1867. All right. I'm not angry anymore, okay? Stay away from me. Don't stick close to me. She pushed him away with a look of disdain. No. I like to stick close to you. Hua Jin saw that her anger had subsided and a look of joy flashed past his eyes. I've watched your movie. Oh. To support you, I booked the entire theater and invited the film crew to watch it. Hua Jin coaxed her. Yoon Shusha, however, remained indifferent. Oh. Why are you so cold? Hua Jin was a little dissatisfied with her indifferent tone. I'm so supportive of you. Aren't you touched at all? Yoon Shusha made an exaggerated expression. I'm so touched. After a pause, her face became indifferent again. Is that okay? Hua Jin. Hua Jin complained sadly. Boo-hoo. Shusha, you're so heartless. Your eyes tell me that you're not touched at all. But Shusha, your acting is really great. I've watched your movie and realized that you have a special charm when you wear the school uniform. Hua Jin praised and coaxed her at the same time. Yoon Shusha was speechless. Just say what you want to say. You don't have to keep kissing my ass, right? What do you mean kissing your ass? Can't you be a little more positive? Can't you just praise me? How is this a simple praise? One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. I think you're obviously up to no good. Hua Jin felt even more hurt. He pursed his lips and stared at her with his watery eyes, as if he was silently complaining. Yoon Shusha continued with what she was doing and ignored him. Although she was ignoring him, Hua Jin stood alone at the side and kept nagging, Aya, our Shusha is really amazing. Her first movie and the box office sales have exceeded 1 billion yuan. I'm sure that this movie will set a new record for box office sales. When that time comes, you'll be an A-list actress. Your future will be bright. There was no need to praise her so much. She wasn't the only one who contributed to the high box office sales. To put it bluntly, the box office appeal of Jiu Xingze and Lin Fengtian combined should have achieved this result. She was at most the icing on the cake. She was very encouraged to be recognized by the audience. She did not dare to hope for anything else. Hua Jin was still eloquent. Your acting skills are so good, and you're so beautiful. If there are a few more movies that can achieve such good results, you'll have billions in box office sales in a few years. I have a feeling that you'll definitely be able to compete for the Best Newcomer award at the Golden Phoenix Award. Yoon Shusha frowned in annoyance as she fixed her makeup in front of the mirror. Hua Jin looked at her. His gaze suddenly fell on the diamond ring on her finger, and he was stunned. Why is there a ring on your ring finger? Hua Jin was stunned for a few seconds before he broke into a smile. Idiot. You're not engaged and not married. How can you wear a ring on your ring finger? Yoon Shusha suddenly turned to look at him. What does it have to do with you whether I wear a ring or not? Hua Jin felt even more wronged. I'm just concerned about you. As he said this, he reached out to grab her hand. You can't wear a ring carelessly. If the media catches this scene, they'll definitely release a statement about your secret marriage. Yoon Shusha avoided his hand and said angrily, Don't move. Chapter 1868. Yoon Shusha smiled casually, but the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She replied softly, Yes, I'm engaged. Hua Jin was stunned for a few seconds. What? He was stunned, and his eyes were blank. Yoon Shusha turned her head and stared into his eyes. She replied seriously, "Yes, I'm engaged." Hua Jin was stunned for a moment before he laughed. "Are you kidding me? Do you think I'm you? Do I need to lie to you when I'm just joking around?" After that, she turned back and touched up her makeup in front of the mirror. There was a dead silence around her. After such a long period of silence, Yoon Shusha was not used to it. She turned around in confusion and saw that Hua Jin was silent, staring at her without saying a word. "What's wrong?" Hua Jin frowned, but he could not say a word. He looked inexplicably lonely. "You look weird. What's wrong? Shusha, are you really engaged?" Hua Jin still found it hard to believe, but his eyes were full of caution. Yoon Shusha was a little defeated by him. She said helplessly, "Hua Jin, I'm really engaged. I'm not lying to you." Ah, Hua Jin's eyes widened. His lips moved, but he did not say anything. In the end, there was only silence. Her phone suddenly rang. Yoon Shusha immediately went to the side to answer the call. "Hello." On the other end, Mu Yaja's deep voice was heard. "Are you still filming?" Yoon Shusha smiled gently and explained patiently, "Yes. There's a scene today that needs to be reshot. I've been busy with work recently, so there's been a delay. I'm back. I miss you a little. When are you coming back?" Mu Yaja's magnetic voice was very clear in the incomparably quiet room. Hua Jin did not have the intention of eavesdropping, but he could still clearly hear Mu Yaja's gentle words. It turned out that, was she really engaged? The man on the phone should be her fiancé, right? How could this be? He thought. Yoon Shusha held the phone and gently coaxed, "Wait for me at home, okay? When I'm done, I'll go home." "Good. No matter how late it is, I will wait for you to come back." "Yes." A sweet smile appeared on Yoon Shusha's face. She hung up the phone and returned to the dressing mirror. However, she saw that Hua Jin's face was strangely silent. His head was lowered, and his eyes were buried in the shadow of his forehead. She couldn't see what emotions were hidden in his eyes, but the lines of his shoulders were inexplicably stiff and cold. Yoon Shusha's expression froze for a moment. "What's wrong with you? She was so energetic just a moment ago. Why did she suddenly become obedient and quiet? This person is really strange." Yoon Shusha muttered to herself as she sat down in front of the dressing mirror. Hua Jin suddenly stood up and left the dressing room without a word. She stared blankly at his back view as he left and muttered, "Weirdo." At night, when they were rushing to finish the night work, it was already 10 at night. The weather was at its coldest. Yoon Shusha could not stand the temperature of a few degrees below zero at night in the north. On the set, she tiredly wrapped herself in a military coat. There were a few times when she dozed off and almost fell asleep. Hua Jin sat beside her, but he was still strangely silent and did not make a sound. She busied herself by pouring hot tea for Yoon Shusha and running back and forth to ask the set keeper when they could start shooting. It was so nerve-wracking. Chapter 1869. Yoon Shusha, who was wearing a thin costume, was shivering from the cold even though she was wrapped in a military coat. Her assistant ran back and stomped her feet in anger. "Shusha, you won't be able to do it for the time being. Lin Ji is such a disappointment, she actually got stuck during filming. Director Ji Yu is scolding her, but no one dares to say a word. If we wait for her to finish, who knows how long it'll take. Why don't you go back to the dressing room to hide from the wind? It's cold at night, don't catch a cold." "No need." Yoon Shusha shook her head with a cup of water in her hand. "Filming is over. If it's my turn and I can't be found, Director Ji Yu will fly into a rage again." Her assistant was both angry and distressed. "Still, the weather is so cold. Your body is weak to begin with, what if you can't take it and fall sick?" Yoon Shusha, however, said, "There are so many people waiting, yet they don't seem to have any complaints. I'm not the only one waiting. Let's wait patiently." "That's true. If you hide in the dressing room, who knows if someone will make sarcastic remarks about you acting like a big shot again." As she said this, she shot a meaningful look at the assistant standing at the side. Both of them snorted at this. As the female lead and the supporting female lead's assistants, they did not see eye to eye with each other. Hence, they often had conflicts with each other in the production team. Yoon Shusha waited patiently. Lin Ji's ability to dawdle was admirable. It was just a simple scene, yet they still had not finished filming after more than 3 hours. The weather was very cold and she could not stand the cold. She was shivering during the shoot and her voice was trembling when she said the lines. Ji Yu Xiaoyang was about to explode. He scolded her in front of everyone and gave her a good scolding. Her assistant complained to Yoon Shusha, "Shusha, wait, you must do your best. Director Ji Yu is in a bad mood now. If he vents his anger on you, it'll be terrible." "I know. I'll try my best to get it done in one take." Yoon Shusha thought to herself that there was still a man at home waiting for her return. She definitely had to work harder and muster all her strength to pass in one go. Hua Jin, on the other hand, remained silent throughout. No one knew what he was thinking. At midnight, Lin Ji's scene finally ended. When she returned, she was wrapped in a military coat and her nose was red from the cold. Her assistant escorted her back to the lounge. "Moo," she snickered at the side. "Look at how cold she is. Her nose is about to fall off from the cold." "Moo she. Don't talk nonsense." "Hee, all right." The scriptwriter rushed over to remind them, "Everyone, get ready for the next scene. We'll be filming in 10 minutes. "Got it, thank you," Yoon Shusha said. The stage keeper smiled and hurriedly went to inform the group of extras. When it was time for Yoon Shusha to go on stage, she was extremely focused. Whether it was her positioning, lines, expression, or acting skills, everything was on point. The problem was that the smooth plot was interrupted when it came to Hua Jin. If she was not distracted, she would forget her lines. Hua Jin did not have many lines for this scene. In the past, with his ability, he could pass this scene in one take. However, in just half an hour, he had 3 ings. He exploded on the spot. Chapter 1870. However, Hua Jin kept his head down and didn't even try to brush him off. He responded lazily but didn't say anything else. Ji Yu Xiaoyang glanced at his expression and wanted to scold him but stopped himself. Clearly, he didn't want to offend someone like Hua Jin. He had already vented his anger by scolding him in front of so many people, so he didn't want to be too forceful with him. Thus, he held back his anger and took a few deep breaths before lecturing. "Act well from now on." "Yes, I understand, great director." Hua Jin's attitude was very casual. Ji Yu Xiaoyang's suppressed anger was stirred up by his flippant and provocative words. He suddenly strode over and stuck close to him. Looking at him, he gritted his teeth and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Don't think that just because you have a strong background, you can be so arrogant in front of the crew. Hua Jin, you were able to get into this crew because you have someone supporting you, but I don't want to be bullied by you. Act well. If you don't want to act, then get lost." "I won't get lost." Hua Jin smiled mischievously and blew out a breath at him. "If you're so capable, why don't you kick me out of the crew?" "Director Ji Yu." "You." Ji Yu Xiaoyang clenched his fists in exasperation. After enduring for a while, he suddenly stormed off. Yoon Shusha stared blankly at the sudden scene in front of her. She was a little confused. Then, she looked at Hua Jin who was standing there arrogantly, looking as though he wasn't convinced. His handsome brows were slightly furrowed, and he was obviously making things difficult for Ji Yu Xiaoyang on purpose. She walked over and asked patiently, "Hua Jin, can you act well?" The moment Yoon Shusha spoke, Hua Jin's tone inexplicably softened. He smiled and said, "I'm acting well." "Is this the result of acting well? There are problems everywhere, be it your positioning or your lines. It's just a few lines. How many ings have you had?" Hua Jin pouted and said unhappily, "I'm not in a good condition. I gave you so much time to adjust your condition, and now you're telling me that you're not in a good condition? Don't you think it's too perfunctory?" Everyone looked over curiously. Seeing that Yoon Shusha actually spoke to Hua Jin in such a tone, everyone was stunned. Everyone in the production team knew that Hua Jin had a strong backer. Hence, he was rather arrogant in the production team and no one dared to offend him. Even the strong-willed Ji Yu Xiaoyang had to lower his status when speaking to him. But Yoon Shusha dared to speak to him like that in public. Everyone secretly sighed in their hearts. What great courage. Hua Jin did not say anything. However, Yoon Shusha did not stop criticizing him. Please put more effort into your acting. This is not the first time this has happened. Everyone was tired, especially director Ji Yu. He had been filming for the whole day. Couldn't he be a little more considerate? Is there a need to drag everyone down and suffer with you on such a cold night? Hua Jin only said one sentence, I'm not happy. Not happy. Yoon Shusha was so angry that she laughed. If you're not happy, you want everyone to suffer with you? Hua Jin, aren't you a little too selfish? Hua Jin stared at her, dumbfounded. Then, he suddenly said in an extremely strange tone, Shusha, are you in a hurry to go home after filming? What? Chapter 1871. Hua Jin's tone was very strange. It vaguely gave off a feeling of jealousy. Yoon Shusha did not understand why he would say such strange things and smiled coldly. Everyone wants to finish filming as soon as possible and go home to accompany their families. Hua Jin's eyes were filled with loneliness, but he laughed at himself. That's great. Someone is waiting for you to come home, but I'm not. There was envy and disappointment in his eyes. Yoon Shusha, Hua Jin lowered his head and compromised. Okay, I'll do my best and try to pass it in one take. I won't take up your time. The following scenes were surprisingly smooth. Basically, all the scenes were completed in one take. When Hua Jin was serious, his ability was jaw-dropping. Be it the emotion in his eyes or the dramatic tension in his expression, they were flawless. Everyone predicted that Hua Jin would definitely become the second Ji Yu Xingza. He had such ability and talent. After the scenes were over, Hua Jin still had to stay behind to finish the night work. Yoon Shusha finished her scenes and hurried home. On the way back, Mushi carefully asked while driving, Shusha, do you feel that Hua Jin has an inexplicable dependence on you? I feel that he seems to like you a lot. Of course, it's not the kind of love between a man and a woman. I keep feeling that he's a lonely person, so he's like a younger brother relying on his older sister. Mushi said truthfully. At the mention of Hua Jin, Yoon Shusha felt a headache. Don't worry about him. What's wrong? This person is really a weirdo. His temper is weird, and so is his personality. Mushi was stunned for a moment before she smiled and said, Actually, I think that Hua Jin is quite a good person. Why do you say that? In the past, when I didn't interact with Hua Jin, I felt quite afraid of this person. It's said that Hua Jin's backer is not ordinary. The backer behind him is mysterious and powerful. Back when Hua Jin joined the cast of Lethal Beauty, you don't know how many young hunks were fighting for his role. A IP drama like Lethal Beauty is bound to set off a craze once it's broadcasted. Moreover, the male lead's character is quite likable and has many loyal fans. Basically, as long as one gets this role, it's guaranteed to be a hit. However, with so many people vying for the role, all it took was a few words from Hua Jin, and the role was decided for him. Don't you think it's scary? Yoon Shusha was silent. Also, I heard some insider's news. She suddenly asked mysteriously, do you know Lee Joxian? Yes. Back then, in order to be able to act in this drama, he even slept with the producer. In the end, it was Hua Jin who won it. Lee Joxian is about to vomit blood from anger. Yoon Shusha was surprised. If I remember correctly, the producer of Lethal Beauty is a middle-aged uncle. So what? Mushi did not think much of it and was clearly used to it. This industry is very chaotic. That producer is gay. Although Lee Joxian isn't, he's willing to go all out for this role. What's a few nights of sleeping with someone if he can get a gold medal role? Yoon Shusha was flustered for a moment before she muttered to herself, the rich and powerful circle is really messy. Chapter 1872. Actually, that producer wanted to hook up with Hua Jin. However, Hua Jin has a strong backer. Even if he's eyeing him covetously, he doesn't have the guts to do it. Is Hua Jin so popular the moment he debuted? Mushi shook her head. Nope. She continued, Hua Jin only became popular in the past 2 years. Because he has a sugar daddy, his status naturally rose. Before this, he was a money boy. Yoon Shusha was confused. What does a money boy mean? Mushi's lips twitched. You don't even know what a money boy means. I don't understand. The red light at the intersection lit up. Mushi stopped in her tracks and turned to look at her. Under the dim light, her expression seemed a little blurred. In ancient times, moneyboys were also known as male prostitutes. Now, you can think of them as male toys of some rich people. Yoon Shusha was shocked. She suddenly recalled what Hua Jin had said to her. I entered this industry because I was sold by my father when I was very young. Could it be, his background wasn't a joke? It was real. While she was in a daze, Mushi continued to explain in her ear, Hua Jin used to be a famous male toy. In the beginning, he was a lowly man who accompanied customers in bars to drink. Later, he was bought by the boss of a management company and kept as a mistress for a few years. At that time, Hua Jin was not famous yet. Although he was young, he was handsome and youthful. Many bosses liked this type of man, so he was considered a hot commodity and had been booked by many sugar daddies. Later, the boss of the management company saw that he was handsome and had a good face shape, so he gave him a stage name and tried to promote him as an artist. Who would have thought that after acting in a period drama, it would become so popular? He had also leaped up the ranks and became a popular actor in period dramas. Later, he was taken over by an even more powerful sugar daddy. He's really depraved, Yoon Shusha said in disgust. Mushi shook her head and sighed. Haha. Shusha, what you're saying is wrong. In this industry, there are many times when you can't do as you wish. It's not like being kept or being depraved. Sometimes, even if you're unwilling, you have no choice but to submit in this world where the strong preys on the weak. Who would be willing to sell their body? Hua Jin probably lived an inhuman life in those years. I heard that Hua Jin seemed to have tried to commit suicide in the past. He cut his wrists in the bathtub, but he was discovered in time and was saved. Yoon Shusha was stunned. However, after this sugar daddy's daddy, it's been different. This sugar daddy is so powerful that he even secretly dealt with a few of the people who used to torture Hua Jin in the past. Got rid with him. Yoon Shusha was doubtful about this word. What do you mean by handle? Mushi cleared her throat and said, that's what it means. She made a throat-slitting motion, vivid and vivid. Yoon Shusha's face turned pale. How did this happen? This industry was darker than she had imagined. Chapter 1873. Otherwise, why do you think the entire production team doesn't dare to go against Hua Jin? Hua Jin is so arrogant and overbearing. Have you seen anyone who dares to stand up for him? She shook her head. No one dares to, except for you. That's why I'm very afraid of Hua Jin. When I first joined the production team, I didn't even dare to look him in the eye and practically avoided him. So what if she's beautiful? She's just like a poppy flower, beautiful but deadly. After a pause, she continued. But now, my impression of him has changed. You don't know this, but when you're not on set, sometimes the people in the production team will gossip about you. If someone dares to say anything bad about you in front of Hua Jin, he'll stand up for you. With him protecting you, no one in the production team will dare to criticize you, even if they hate you to the core. Take Lin Ji's assistant for example. Do you think she'll dare to say anything about you? Yoon Shusha fell silent. After sending her home, Mushi drove off. Before she left, she did not forget to remind her, Shusha, I'll pick you up at 8 tomorrow morning. You must wake up on time. Yoon Shusha waved her goodbye and dragged her tired body home. Just as she opened the door, she was greeted by the warm light of the living room. Mu Yaja was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper. When he heard the movement at the entrance, he looked up and smiled faintly. You're back. Haven't you rested yet? She thought that he was already asleep. It was already so late. It was 1 a.m, yet he was still waiting for her in the living room. Yoon Shusha's heart warmed. She originally thought that she would be greeted by a dark room, but she did not expect to see him still waiting for her when she opened the door. How can I sleep soundly if you don't come back? Mu Yaja said as he gently patted the sofa. Come here. His summons made her feel like a summoned beast. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She closed the door, took off her coat, hung it on the hanger, and walked to the sofa. Just as she sat beside him, The man's strong arm wrapped around her waist and pulled her into his embrace. Before she could react, the man lowered his head and sealed her lips with a wolfish kiss. He tasted her beautiful breath. He had been thinking about this kiss for too long. He had been longing for the woman in his arms for so long. During this business trip for more than half a month, he missed her so much that he almost went crazy. After they arrived in Luo City, Jiangxin and Lu Jinyu were busy hunting for women. They were tortured by him, so naturally, they were busy looking for women to fill their emptiness. Mu Yaja was immersed in his work, but he could still hold himself back from not seeing her for a few days. For more than half a month, he didn't even know how he had endured it. Don't go on business trips. Don't leave me for so long. Mu Yaja hugged her tightly, unwilling to let go. Since they got off the plane, he missed her so much that he did not feel sleepy at all. If she did not come back, he would not feel at ease at all. Otherwise, why did they say that absence makes the heart grow fonder? Lovers in love, not to mention half a month, even if they were separated for 7 or 8 days, they would still miss each other so much that their souls would leave their bodies. Not to mention the long period of more than half a month. Yun Shusha missed him too. If it were not for the huge workload in the past half a month, she would not even know how to deal with this long night without him. Chapter 1874. He hugged her, and she hugged his waist in return, passionately responding to his demands. She even knew how to take the initiative to pry open his thin lips, entangling with his warm tongue, unable to part. She missed him too. She missed the warmth of his body. She missed the mesmerizing curve of his lips. Yun Shusha lingered on his lips. After a few flirtatious moments, she panted coquettishly and looked at his handsome and devilish face with her languid eyes. "Why are you back so late?" he said in a displeased tone, but his tone was full of indulgence and there was no hint of blame in it. Yun Shusha replied, "The filming took place very late and the weather was cold, so the progress was a little slower. Stop filming." As he rubbed against her ear, his breath smelled like orchids as he whispered these words. This was not the first time he had said this. Filming had taken up too much of their time together. He felt very dissatisfied. Yun Shusha looked a little guilty. She cupped his face and comforted him. "Aren't I back now? You're back so late and you're still speaking in such a self-righteous tone." Mu Yaja's tone was unfriendly. His hand suddenly reached under her clothes and through the thick cotton coat, he easily grasped her softness. He leaned close to her ear and said in a threatening and flirtatious tone, "Tell me, how should I punish you?" "Hey." Yun Shusha was angry and amused at the same time. She pushed his shoulder and said, "I'm only back a little late. Do you want to punish me?" "Aha. I waited for you for 5 hours. Tell me, do you think you should be punished?" Mu Yaja's arrogant tone made the corners of her lips curl up even more. She hugged his shoulder and gave him a peck. She smiled sweetly and said, "My dear husband, is this compensation enough?" "Not enough." Yun Shusha kissed him again. "Then how about this?" "Not enough." "Then what is enough?" Mu Yaja sucked on her cheeks reluctantly and kissed her deeply. He persevered in exploring the sweetness between her lips. However, at this moment only a catcher sound could be heard. The bedroom door was opened. Mu Yaja was the first to react. He looked up and saw Yo-Yo in his pajamas suddenly appearing at the end of the corridor. He looked at the intimate scene in the living room and was tongue-tied for a moment. There was a look of uneasiness on his little face. He stood there uneasily and wanted to retreat silently. However, when he saw Mu Yaja's gaze on him, he could not move his feet for a moment. D***MNit. Yu helplessly covered his face. He was clearly speechless. What a coincidence, he actually caught his daddy and mommy being lovey-dovey again. How awkward. And this was not to mention, it to God to was it telepathy? As long as daddy and mommy were being intimate, he would always appear coincidentally. He to Momo yo to mommy and daddy to mommy. To mommy to mommy to mommy to mommy and mommy and to momto yy to daddy and daddy to mommy and momly to mommy and to momus. Would daddy think that it was premeditated? To daddy on purpose? He was innocent. He was not going to take the blame. Yo-Yo could not hide the awkwardness on his face. Yun Shusha turned her gaze and saw Yo-Yo standing there looking tired and embarrassed. She immediately wanted to get up and push Muyaja away. However, the next second, Muyaja pulled her into his arms domineeringly. Chapter 1875. Yo-Yo cleared his throat and pretended to rub his sleepy eyes innocently. He said righteously, "I'm thirsty, so I want to get some hot water to drink. Drinking hot tea is a good habit." "Approved," Muyaja said calmly. Yo-Yo said politely, "Thank you, father, for your permission." Yun Shusha was speechless. Muyaja looked at him meaningfully and said, "After you've poured the hot water, drink it and go to sleep. Do you understand?" Yo-Yo exchanged glances with him. The father and son looked at each other with tacit understanding. One of them was using his eyes to say, "I'm busy with your mommy." The other was using his eyes to reply, "I understand. I'll avoid it." Yo-Yo nodded and smiled knowingly. "Got it." Then, without looking sideways, he rushed into the kitchen. Within half a minute, Yo-Yo returned with a cup of hot tea and walked into the bedroom without looking away. Yun Shusha was dumbfounded. Muyaja kissed her as a form of consolation. "Let's continue." Just as he said that, they heard a cough. The two of them turned around and saw Yo-Yo's little head popping out from behind the wall. Then, he reminded them kindly, "It's cold at night. Daddy and Mommy should rest early too. Remember to strike a balance between work and rest." With that, he turned around and ran back into the room, slamming the door shut. Muyaja was speechless. Yun Shusha was speechless. "This little clown," Muyaja smiled, but he was annoyed in his heart. Then, he carried Yun Shusha in his arms and strode into the bedroom. After entering the room, the man's ambition seemed to need no more concealment. He held her in his arms and led her small hand to his waist. Yun Shusha's face burned the moment she touched it. The man's urgency made it clear that he no longer had any patience. He was no longer willing to exchange pleasantries and wanted to get straight to the point. She wanted to dodge, but he was too strong and refused to let go of her hand. That place was already eyeing her covetously, causing her face to blush even more and her heart to beat faster. It was as if she had been dyed with top-grade rouge, causing her to be charming and moving. "What? You should like it very much." In his passion, the man bit her earlobe and said extremely heart-stopping words. Her face grew redder and redder, and she said shyly, "You don't talk nonsense. Isn't it?" The man smiled evilly. The more shy she was, the more he wanted to take possession of her beauty. So, he threw her on the bed, the tip of their noses touching, while pecking her lips, and skillfully unbuttoning her clothes. "Just now, you also showed an impatient look. Why are you so reserved now? It's rare for you to take the initiative. I like it very much." His smile was devilishly charming. His originally cold lips, because of the lingering kiss with her, were slightly warm. When his lips touched her beautiful shoulders and neck, they left dark red marks. Looking at the seductive look in his eyes, Yun Shusha hummed for a long time, but she couldn't say anything decent. She really did desire him. Chapter 1876. He said that he liked it when she took the initiative. Recalling his excessively naughty flirting, Yun Shusha felt shy and uneasy at the same time, but the man saw it all. He grabbed her chin and wrapped his arms around her waist, forcing her to completely match his body. "Do you know? The more shy you are, the more I want to see you under me, that mesmerizing look." Yun Shusha was so embarrassed that she grabbed his collar and reached out to cover the mouth that kept spitting out words that made her feel at a loss. Muyaja. Why was this man so different from usual when it came to matters of the heart? Usually, he was dressed in a suit and looked elegant. He gave off a refined and courteous feeling, like an elegant king, and in this aspect, whenever he was in the middle of matters, he would always say things that made her blush. "Stop talking." "Okay, I won't talk. Let's do it directly." As he murmured, he directly covered her small mouth that wanted to say something. His scorching hot breath brushed against her cheeks and neck. Finally, he invaded her small mouth and tasted her sweet and enchanting breath. She was forced to float under him. His increasingly violent attacks made her feel like a small boat in the middle of a raging storm, bobbing up and down on the sea. "So sweet." He bit her earlobe and said wickedly. He grabbed her little hand that was resisting and attacked even more ferociously. The long night was beautiful and enchanting. In the midst of the man's indulgent panting, he finally vented all of it. He possessed her until she couldn't take it anymore. She cried and shouted that she didn't want it anymore. Then, he hugged her waist and was willing to stop. In the midst of it, there was a moment in his mind when he thought of just giving it to her. This little thing was really like a poison. Even so, he still couldn't control himself and fell into it, drinking poison to quench his thirst. After they finished, Yoon Shusha nestled in his arms. She was so exhausted that she couldn't even lift her eyelids. If she moved a little, her waist would let out a tragic cry. It was as if she had just experienced a war. She felt that her whole body was about to fall apart. She was so useless. She had really worked hard to train herself, but she still couldn't handle the man's overly strong physical strength. He supported her body and lowered his head, taking in her beautiful and seductive posture. If this little thing was in ancient times, she would be a demoness that could bring disaster to the country. Even the most clear-headed monarch wouldn't be able to control himself in front of such a stunner. With such a stunner, how would he have the mood to worry about the state affairs? When he thought of it, he felt that he was a little like a fatuous monarch in ancient times who was obsessed with beauties. Mu Yaja smiled playfully and hugged her tightly, eliciting a soft gasp from her. "What's wrong? My waist is a little bit. Why is it?" She laughed in exasperation. "You're still asking me? You're really..." The man murmured, but his hands were very gentle, and he began to knead for her. Yoon Shusha dodged as if she had been electrocuted. "Hey. Why are you like this? Alright, I won't tease you anymore." Chapter 1877. Although he was not a professional, his technique was especially gentle. Under his kneading, Yoon Shusha let out a comfortable moan and her body relaxed a lot. Mu Yaja was angry and amused at the same time. How could this woman be so delicate? However, the more delicate she was, the more he wanted to dote on her. After giving her a massage, he carried her to the shower room and cleaned up the two of them, who were sweating profusely from the shower. Feeling refreshed, he carried her into bed, turned on the heater, and fell asleep with her in his arms. It was a dreamless night until the sun rose. "Moo," she called to wake her up. When Yoon Shusha woke up, the sky outside the window was dark. In winter, the sun woke up later. At 7 o'clock, the sky had just turned bright. The weather in the morning was very cold. She struggled with herself for a long time before she was willing to get out of the warm bed. At this time, a certain man was still immersed in his sleep. He hugged her domineeringly. His strong arms were like a pair of shackles that were difficult to break free from. She was in a hurry to get out of bed and freshen up, but she also had to be careful not to wake him up. After a lot of effort, she finally freed herself from his arms. She changed her clothes and walked into the bathroom. After washing up, she was ready to go out. Just as she opened the door, the man was sensitively alerted. Yoon Shusha turned around and saw that the man's eyes were slightly open. "Where are you going?" The man's extremely hoarse voice sounded softly. Yoon Shusha chuckled and walked to the bed. She squatted down and gently covered his forehead. "Wifey is going to work. Darling, sleep a little more." "So early?" Mu Yaja was a little dissatisfied. He woke up from his sleepiness and covered the back of her hand. There was a dangerous look in his eyes. "Why are you going to work so early?" I have to rush for an event. My schedule is quite full today, so I might be a little late when I come back." Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes. Chin Ju, that D*MN vampire. This little thing's body was so weak, yet he could not bear to torture her. Yet, he made her schedule so full. "Courting death. I heard that the movie you starred in did well at the box office." "Yes. That's why I received a lot of notices." He had already signed several contracts. Mu Yaja's gaze became increasingly dangerous. This Chin Ju really deserved to die. Could it be that he turned a deaf ear to his words? Taking advantage of his absence, he arranged such a full schedule for his woman. Yoon Shusha didn't know what he was thinking. After being affectionate with him for a while, she hurriedly went out. As soon as she left, Mu Yaja picked up his phone and called Chin Ju. Chin Ju had just woken up, too. As soon as the call connected, Mu Yaja's voice, which was laced with anger, came through. You've arranged so many jobs for my woman, and she's always back in the middle of the night. Have you considered my feelings when you make her so busy? Qin Ju woke up immediately. Aya. It was early in the morning, and the big boss was really full of resentment. Mu Yaja snorted coldly. It seems that you've turned a deaf ear to my word. I've already made the arrangements. Although Shusha is busy now, I've already informed the crew that she can leave after filming. There's no need for her to stay on set. It was already 1 o'clock when she came back yesterday. Chapter 1878. His infuriating tone made it easy for a man without a family to speak without feeling any pain. Mu Yaja was even more displeased. I don't like it when she leaves early and returns late. It's so tiring. As for the rest, you can do as you deem fit. I'll see how you perform. Without giving him a chance to explain further, he hung up the call. Qin Ju stared at the phone screen with his mouth agape. His whole person was in a mess. What is this? What a domineering CEO. He muttered and looked at the time. It was past 8 in the morning, which was indeed very early. The weather was still very cold at this time. No wonder this big boss was angry. His heart must be aching to see his wife rushing to work early in the morning. He sighed and held his forehead. It seemed that the schedule had to be adjusted again. Yun Shusha had 2 jobs in the morning, so she rushed through them like a flying person. She bitterly grabbed a lunchbox and flew to the TV station to participate in a program recording. On the way, there was a traffic jam on the outer ring highway. Yun Shusha picked up her phone and prepared to watch the complete movie of The Green Apple. She did not have the chance to watch the movie after the post-production was completed, so she did not know how the overall effect of the movie was. Her assistant copied the movie to her phone, and while the traffic was busy, she watched it with relish. Romantic music, exquisite post-production rendering, thrilling plot, tear-jerking sadomasochistic love. Yun Shusha was engrossed in watching the video. She held the phone in her hands and was engrossed in it. It must be said that the effect was very different from what she had expected. Filming on the set was actually very boring. She had to read her lines and walk according to the script. She could not see her own expression at all, so the framework was rigid. In this aspect, Lin Fengtian was very strict. He had a good grasp of the movie, so in the script, be it her expression or lines, she had to act according to his design. She was almost like a worker, completing all the targets in an assembly line and completing the work. After filming, Yun Shusha's heart was pounding. When it came to acting, it was actually quite different from the movie. In the past, when she watched movies, she would always be so immersed in the touching scenes. Tears would immediately flow out of her eyes. However, when acting, no matter how heart-wrenching the scene was, it was very difficult for her to immerse herself in the feelings. Sad emotions needed to be repeatedly brewed. When she really could not squeeze out tears, she would shut herself in a quiet little dark room and constantly imagine sad things. With sad music, she could grasp that feeling and return to the set to continue. However, after excellent post-production, the movie was different. When the scene came out, it was clearly a joyous scene during the filming. But in the movie, when the bridge was played, coupled with the heart-wrenching BGM, sadness filled everyone's hearts. Especially at the end, Yun Shusha found it hard to control her sadness, and tears burst out of her eyes. When Mu Shi saw this, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. Shusha, why are you so disappointing? How could she cry while watching her own movie? I really admire you, Yun Shusha said awkwardly, because it's very touching. Chapter 1879. Yun Shusha broke into a smile through her tears. Actually, I didn't notice it when I was acting, but when I watched it, after the post-production, this kind of sad emotion came out without any brewing. When other people watch their own movies, they laugh as they finish watching them. They even feel embarrassed after watching them. You, on the other hand, actually cried while watching it. Mu Shi changed the topic and praised sincerely, Shusha, your acting is really good. Do you still remember? Before the movie was released, many people doubted you, humiliated you, and looked down on you. But now, you've proven yourself with your capabilities. Your acting is really good. Yin Xiaochuan's character has been vividly portrayed by you. Don't flatter me. Aya, I'm just speaking the truth. How can this be considered flattering? She smiled and then focused her energy again. After a long traffic jam, Yoon Shusha finally arrived at the TV station and was almost late. She was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat. The recording of this show was very important to Yoon Shusha. Because it was the TV station's variety show with the highest viewership ratings, it was inevitable that other celebrities would be unhappy with Shusha for being late and would say that she was acting like a big shot. Jiyu Xingze was supposed to participate in this episode's recording. However, due to certain reasons that could not be announced to the public, Jiyu Xingze could not participate. Helpless, the production team could only replace him at the last minute. This person was no stranger to Yoon Shusha. Lee Joxian. Seeing Lee Joxian, Yoon Shusha was suddenly reminded of the gossip she had told her yesterday. When she thought of how Lee Joxian was willing to sleep with the producer for the male lead of Lethal Beauty, she felt that this man was really degrading. In the past, she thought that Lee Joxian's looks were outstanding, his acting skills were not bad, and his temperament was gentle and elegant. She did not expect him to be so unrestrained in private. It was really hard to imagine. She's gossip really destroyed her worldview. What 9 dragons playing with pearls? What deep water bombs? The chaos in the industry had caused her to keep a distance from any celebrities. Hence, in the dressing room, the moment her assistant left, Yoon Shusha heard the other senior staff gossiping about her. Sister Meng, the newcomers nowadays are all very arrogant. Look at him, he's just debuted and has only starred in 1 movie. He's already so arrogant. She's the Phoenix girl that director Lin personally appointed. She comes from a high family. How can she be the same as us? So what if you're Lady Phoenix? She just debuted and she's already so proud of being the female lead. It's obvious that she's looking down on us small C-listers. Haha. People who became popular overnight were indeed different. However, who knew how she got the role of the female lead? It's not easy to be the Phoenix girl. She just debuted and already has such good resources. After that, those people deliberately lowered their voices and whispered to each other. Yoon Shusha couldn't hear them clearly. However, even if he didn't hear it clearly, it wasn't hard to imagine how unpleasant those words were. She couldn't be bothered. Chapter 1880. She did not even need to think to know who these people were talking about. She coldly snorted and sarcastically said, "Why, are you jealous of our Shusha?" The few celebrities turned around and, upon seeing that it was her, sneered at one another. What? What has it got to do with you? It's a cat catching a mouse. Shusha is our artist. If I don't care about you guys gossiping about her behind her back, who will? Crazy. Forget it. Sister Meng, ignore them. We've hit the nail on the head, so they're angry from embarrassment. She rolled her eyes, walked over, and slammed the teacup on the table with a loud bang. Her angry action shocked them all. What are you doing? You're jealous, aren't you? You're jealous that our Shusha got the female lead role right after her debut, that our Shusha proved her acting skills with her acting skills, and that our Shusha's movie broke the 1 billion yuan box office, aren't you? I'd like to ask who you're trying to annoy with your sarcastic words. Aren't you guys just bullying our Shusha for being good-tempered and letting you bully her? Haha. Let me tell you, Shusha can act in director Lin's movie because she's capable. Wild chickens like you want to act in director Lin's movie and be the female lead. Do you even have the chance to cross that threshold? With your narrow horizons, don't embarrass yourselves here. The few celebrities could not take it anymore after being ridiculed by her. What are you doing? Are you a firecracker? You can go off at the slightest touch. Are you crazy? Are you trying to find trouble with us? Who's interested in finding trouble with has-been artists like you? She sneered. I just find you guys especially pitiful. Look at your faces. You're the typical example of sour grapes. You even said that our Shusha is pretending to be pure and innocent, but why don't you take a look at yourselves? Going to Korea for plastic surgery is more like an assembly line product. Look at your hyaluronic acid faces. Do you think you can act it out? Don't think that you'll be famous just because you're in this industry now and have a sugar daddy. Acting still depends on your abilities. Her poisonous tongue was comparable to Qin Ju's. His cunning and poisonous tongue made the faces of the few people turn white, making them feel embarrassed. One of the more experienced artistes suddenly jumped up from her seat and arrogantly walked in front of her. Her exquisitely painted face was like a Barbie doll, and a pair of eyes stared fiercely at her, as if she wanted to eat her up. Amazing. Even a small assistant nowadays is so rude. Who do you think you are? How dare you stand in front of us and criticize us? Are you looking for a beating? Her face was full of menace. Chapter 1881. For someone like you, it's better not to think about entering the entertainment industry. Instead, you should think about how to hook up with a rich and foolish sugar daddy and quickly pursue your dream of becoming a rich man. The artiste whom she was mocking was indeed a bar hostess. After obtaining a sugar daddy, she pestered her way into the entertainment industry and went for plastic surgery to get some resources. She had some fame, but she was only half famous. Even in this variety show, she was only invited by the production team to fill in the numbers. That person's face turned green and white, and she could not spit out a word. It must be said that where there were women, there would be war. Moreover, the entertainment industry was a place where beauties gathered. If one had to use a word to describe it, it was similar to the imperial palace in ancient times. Many artistes were like concubines in the harem. Those who were beautiful would naturally have a bright future. Those who were not beautiful would grit their teeth and go for plastic surgery to see if they were fated to be famous or not. Take this person, who was called Sister Meng by the younger generation, for example. She had an angelic face, but she was not fated to be famous at all. She acted in a few shows, but they were neither hot nor cold. Those who had a bleak future were like those concubines who had fallen out of favor in the harem. They were banished to the cold palace and disappeared without a trace. There were even some artistes who, although they were called celebrities, were nothing more than high-class prostitutes. They indulged in a life of luxury and forgot everything. She especially looked down on such people. Before entering the entertainment industry, she had always thought that celebrities were like male gods and goddesses. However, when she really entered the industry, she realized that, although they were glamorous on the surface, they were actually foul in private. This person called Sister Meng was so angry that she could not speak for a moment. She continued to mock her. Envious of our Shusha, what's the use of being jealous? If you're indignant, why don't you do it too? If you're so capable, come out with a movie that breaks 1 billion yuan at the box office. Let's see you in a different light. You. B***tch, shut up. The heated argument alerted Yun Shusha and, at the same time, the show's producer. The producer walked over. When he saw Shi, he smiled at her. The production team used to have a deep relationship with Jiu Xingze, so he was familiar with her and knew that she was a lady who did her job. He then looked at the ashen faces of the artistes and frowned. What are you doing? What's going on? Producer Li, it's like this. Shi explained to them what had happened earlier. Sister Meng panicked and opened her mouth to explain. Producer Li waved his hand and interrupted her. Backstage, there's so much media waiting for you, and you're still arguing? What? What a bad temper. Wu Mengjie, I'm warning you. If you still want to go on the show, shut your mouths. Otherwise, don't say that I didn't warn you if you don't perform well and get humiliated in front of the public. With that, the producer gave a few more instructions to Shi before turning around to get busy. Wu Mengjie was so angry that her chest heaved up and down violently. She had nowhere to vent her anger, so she said sarcastically, having a background is really different. Even the producer is taking such good care of you, bitch. If you have the ability, you should do the same. Wu Mengjie felt suffocated and uncomfortable all over. She glared at her fiercely and left the dressing room in her high heels. A few of his followers immediately chased after him. Chapter 1882. Yun Shusha was dumbfounded at the sight. Seeing her dazed expression, Shi asked in confusion, Shusha, what's wrong? Why do you have such an expression? You're so strong. I didn't expect you to have such a sharp tongue. She stuck out her tongue, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What? I've been with Qin Ju for so long, so I naturally have to practice my glib tongue. Thank you for defending me, But there's no need to be calculative with these people. Shusha, it's not that I'm being hypocritical, but you'll never know the consequences of angering these people. You're well-mannered, but they're brainless. Can you be calculative with them? She did not fully understand. You're just an assistant. To be honest, in this society, the strong preys on the weak. The fact that they can become famous means that they have some power behind them. If you really go head-on with them, you might end up hurting yourself. She understood that Shusha was saying this out of concern for her. Indeed, she had lost her rationality because she was too angry earlier. Just thinking about it made her shudder. These artistes' financiers were quite powerful. If she went back and filed a complaint, she did not know how they would deal with her behind her back. She was different from them. She didn't have a strong backing. She smiled guiltily. I'm sorry, Shusha. I wasn't rational enough. Thank you for your concern. She was especially grateful for Shusha's kind reminder. It's fine, but don't worry. Shusha changed the topic and smiled evilly. In the future, just leave such people to me. Since they said that she used underhanded means to climb up the ranks, she might as well let them see what kind of underhanded means she had. Those words just now had angered her. However, due to her etiquette, she did not show her displeasure on her face. When she returned to the dressing table, she received a new message on her phone. Yaja, when will it end? Shusha replied, filming ends at 4 p.m. Half a minute later, a reply came. Which TV station? I'll pick you up. It was just a simple sentence, but it was filled with love and sweetness. Shusha smiled and replied briskly, Yasen TV station. Generally speaking, a variety show's broadcast duration was only around 90 minutes, but in reality, the recording process was extremely long. After the 4-hour-long recording ended, Yaja had already rushed to the underground parking lot and was waiting quietly. Shusha appeared on time. After getting into the car, she hugged his shoulder and planted a kiss on his cheek. Hubby, you've worked hard. It was a warm nickname, but it was Yaja. His thin lips couldn't help but curve into a doting arc. Are you hungry? He asked gently as he gazed at her face with watery eyes. Shusha rubbed her deflated tummy and grumbled, Of course, I'm hungry. I just ate a little for lunch. What did you eat? Lunch. Shusha had an indescribable look of resentment on her face. I took a few bites and rushed to the next trip. Why are you in such a hurry? You have to eat your fill for lunch. Because I'm afraid that I won't be able to make it in time for the recording. If you can't make it in time, let them wait. In the future, you're not allowed to work without a full meal. It's easy to get stomach problems from hunger. Such a domineering tone was his usual style. Shusha didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 1883. Yaja rubbed her fringe lovingly and tucked a strand of hair that had fallen to the corner of her eyes behind her ear. Where do you want to eat tonight? Shusha licked her pink lips and suddenly suggested, Why don't we go for Western food? I suddenly feel like eating fried steak. Okay. The car slowly drove out of the parking lot. At the exit, Yaja drove so fast that he almost collided with a speeding Mercedes-Benz. The car braked and steadied itself. Shusha was shocked. She saw that the car was about to collide with the car. Fortunately, Yaja controlled the car well. Coupled with the car's high performance, he managed to stop the car in time. A woman alighted from the Mercedes-Benz. Shusha took a closer look and her face suddenly turned cold. What was the saying again? Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. The person alighting from the car was Wu Mengjie, who had a fierce argument with Shi in the dressing room. The moment she alighted, she nervously walked to the front of the car to take a look. Thinking that they had collided, she heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that there was no sound. She was scared. This Mercedes-Benz was an imported sports car. Every time a layer of paint was chipped, they would have to import parts from abroad to repair the car. It was very expensive. Thinking of this, Wu Mengjie felt a lingering fear in her heart. She stormed up to Yaja's car and angrily knocked on the window. Do you have F***king eyes? Do you know how to drive? Why are you driving so fast? Are you rushing to be reincarnated? Yoon Shusha's face turned colder. This Wu Mengjie was reserved and humble in the show. When she smiled, she was as elegant and noble as a goddess. She was beautiful and moving. She did not expect that she would be so shrewish and uncultured when off camera. It turned out that one could not judge a person by their appearance. She looked bright and beautiful, but who knew what kind of disgusting person she was in private? Mu Yaja lowered the window expressionlessly and turned to look at her coldly. Wu Mengjie was stunned when she saw him. What a handsome man. Is he a celebrity idol? But she had been in the industry for so long, and she had never seen such a handsome person. His deep eyes, exquisite facial features, and handsome silhouette made him look like a god. When people see beautiful things, they will always be fascinated. However, when she saw Yoon Shusha sitting in the front passenger seat the next second, she was even more surprised. "Why are you here?" Yoon Shusha asked coldly. "Why can't it be me?" "You." Wu Mengjie looked at Mu Yaja and then looked at Yoon Shusha. For a moment, she was a little confused. Her gaze suddenly fell on Mu Yaja and Yoon Shusha's tightly intertwined fingers. Even though the two of them were sitting in the car, they were still tightly holding hands. It was obvious that the two of them were very close. Could it be? Who is he? Wu Mengjie narrowed her eyes, eager to explore the relationship between this handsome man and her. Yoon Shusha suddenly smiled deeply and said, "Didn't you say that I was able to become famous because I had a sugar daddy behind me?" As she said this, she glanced at Mu Yaja and smiled lightly. She said generously, "This is the sugar daddy you were talking about." Sugar daddy? When Mu Yaja heard this, his gaze turned cold and sharp in an instant. When Wu Mengjie heard this, her mind went boom and instantly exploded. What? This ridiculously handsome man was actually her sugar daddy? How was that possible? But looking at the intimacy between the two of them. Chapter 1884. If what Yoon Shusha said was true, then it was really enviable. The sugar daddy behind her was so outstanding, rich, and handsome. Compared to her previous sugar daddies, they ranged from their 30s to their 50s. There were even old men who were old enough to be her grandfather. They were either balding, or had big bellies. Whenever she thought of that fat body pressing down on her and pleasuring her tactfully, she resisted the urge to vomit. Wu Mengjie was so jealous that her eyes were about to bleed. "I knew it. For you to have such good resources, you must have a sugar daddy supporting you. However, Yoon Shusha, you're so lucky to have such a sugar daddy supporting you. I'm so envious of you." After a pause, she suddenly flipped her long black hair charmingly. With one hand on her slender waist, she gently placed her hand on the car window. "Sir, it's really bad of you to have taken a fancy to such a woman. Why don't you kick her away and I'll do something to you?" As she spoke, she winked at him in what she thought was a flirtatious manner. She lowered her voice and said, "I'm really good in bed." He frowned. "Dirty." Wu Mengjie was stunned. "Ah, what did you say?" Mu Yaja ordered expressionlessly, "Take your dirty hand away." After that, without waiting for her to react, he pressed a button to roll up the car window. Wu Mengjie was caught off guard, and her hand was caught by the car window. She yelped in pain. Mu Yaja stepped on the accelerator, and the car sped away, almost brushing against her body. She was hit hard by the speeding car, and she fell to the ground with a face full of mud. Wu Mengjie stood up and stomped her high heels angrily. What kind of person is he? He's blind to have taken a fancy to that kind of white lotus. As she said that, she still felt that it was a pity. If she could have such a handsome sugar daddy, she would wake up laughing in her dreams. Who was that woman just now? After the car drove out of the car park, Mu Yaja asked plainly. "A C-list celebrity." Yoon Shusha glanced at him and suddenly said half-jokingly, "My husband is so charming. Someone actually dares to openly seduce you in front of me. Tell me, should I be angry? She can't compare to you, not even a hair on your head." Mu Yaja obviously didn't like her joke. He pinched her hand so hard that it hurt. "Hey, you can't take revenge on me like this." Yoon Shusha protested softly. "Did she bully you? If she bullies me, are you going to stand up for me?" Yoon Shusha said with a smile. Mu Yaja frowned, but he didn't seem to be joking with her. "Answer me, did she bully you?" "Hubby, You're so stupid. It's obvious that your wife is being bullied outside. She scolded me for a long time in the makeup room. I don't like her. After a pause, she said aggrievedly, she's also an artist under Huanyu. Hubby, your wife is being bullied outside. Are you going to stand up for me? Mu Yaja was speechless when he heard that. As the lady boss of Huanyu, you're actually being bullied outside by an artist under your management. What should I say about you? Yun Shusha was silent. Since when was she the lady boss of Huanyu? Ah, that's right. Her husband was the big boss behind Huanyu. In that case, wouldn't she be the lady boss of Huanyu? =__==. Chapter 1885. Yun Shusha poked her fingers in embarrassment. Mu Yaja caressed her lowered head and snorted. She doesn't have eyes. I'll issue a blacklist order tomorrow to freeze her. Yun Shusha was amused by his protective attitude. She clapped her hands and cheered, hubby is mighty, how shameless. Yun Shusha suddenly clenched her fists and said, don't wait until tomorrow, let's do it tonight. I didn't want to be calculative with her, but this B***TCH actually seduced my hubby right in front of me. I can't take it until tomorrow. Mu Yaja, he suddenly smiled. All right. I'll blacklist her tonight. Even he himself didn't realize how much he indulged and doted on this little woman. Hubby is the best. All right, don't be unhappy. Let's go for dinner now. Okay. Yun Shusha nodded in joy. Her phone suddenly rang at this moment. She picked it up and glanced at the screen. It was a call from her father. When the call connected, she heard Yun Yecheng's uneasy voice from the other end. Shusha, where are you now? Are you busy? Dad, I'm about to go for dinner. I just finished work. Come to the police station on Shifang Road now. His voice was extremely hoarse. Usually, when he heard that she had just finished work, he would ask about her well-being. No matter how important the matter was, he would ask her to have dinner first. However, today's Yun Yecheng's tone was extremely urgent. Yun Shusha was stunned. Police station? Dad, what happened? I don't know what's going on, either. I just received a summons from the police station and just arrived. Come over right now. Okay. After hanging up, Mu Yaja seemed to have detected something unusual about this call. He asked curiously, what's wrong? Dad wants me to go to the police station now. It seems to be something important. Police station? Mu Yaja frowned in surprise. Where is the police station? Shifang Road. All right. Mu Yaja turned the car around and sped toward Shifang Road. By the time they reached the police station, Yun Yecheng was already sitting on the bench. He was fidgeting uneasily as he rubbed his palms together. It was apparent that he was at a loss as to what to do. Yun Shusha walked over, put her hand on his shoulder, and asked with concern, Dad, what's wrong? Yun Yecheng raised his head and looked at her face. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. When he turned around, he saw Mu Yaja, who had parked his car, slowly walking in. Hello, uncle. Mu Yaja called out politely. Yun Yecheng hurriedly nodded his head and curled his lips into a smile, but no matter how hard he tried, his expression remained ugly. Shusha, the police station called me and said that there's a corpse they want me to identify. I was shocked when I heard it and thought that something had happened to you. When I rushed to the police station, I was told that the corpse had been dead for a long time. I don't know what's going on. Yun Shusha was stunned. A corpse? Yes. Yun Yecheng nodded, his throat moving a little. I heard that a fisherman found it when he was out fishing. At that time, the corpse was already badly decomposed, so it was impossible to identify its face. Yun Shusha asked suspiciously, when did this happen? Chapter 1886. The body was salvaged half a month ago. However, because the decomposition was too serious, the autopsy report has been delayed and has not been released. Yun Shusha and Mu Yaja looked at each other suspiciously. Since there's no autopsy report, the identity shouldn't be confirmed yet. Has the DNA test been done? Yun Yecheng shook his head blankly. We don't know yet. Then, how did the police contact us? Yun Shusha was even more suspicious. Since the identity of the body hasn't been confirmed, Why did the police summon us to the station? Yoon Yeching's lips suddenly trembled violently. His voice was hoarse and the fear in his eyes magnified. Because after the investigation, it might be someone from our family. Shusha, you should know that your mom, Lee Chin, hasn't she been missing for a few months? And Yoon Na, we haven't heard from them in the past few months. I always thought that they had run away from home. This time, the police summoned us to identify the deceased's belongings and clothes to see if we can find anything. I'm on tenterhooks right now. They had been husband and wife for decades. Yoon Yeching once hated Lee Chin to the core, but it was impossible to say that he did not have any feelings for her. Previously, he and Lee Chin had a huge quarrel and even proposed a divorce. Even if they were to get a divorce, she would still want half of the family assets. Yoon Yeching hated her for being too mean to Shusha and being a bully, while Lee Chin hated him for being biased toward Yoon Shusha and not caring about his biological daughter. After the quarrel, something happened to Yoon Na. After that, at the hospital, the mother-daughter pair seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. He had thought of calling the police, but on second thought, there was no bad news after being missing for so many days. They probably ran away from home. Thinking that dirty linen should not be aired in public, Yoon Yeching sighed. Husband and wife parted on good terms after all. Since Lee Chin had left the house with Yoon Na, then so be it. At least, he could have some peace. Hence, he did not make a fuss about it. At that time, he still harbored some hatred toward Lee Chin. But this morning, the police suddenly called and asked them to identify a corpse. Yoon Yeching was baffled and puzzled. What corpse? The police officer asked. There are 2 missing persons in your family. One is your wife, Lee Chin, and the other is your daughter, Yoon Na. They've been missing for so long, why didn't you report them? Do you know where the 2 of them went? Yoon Yeching claimed that he had no idea. The officer laughed and gave a general account of the incident. He said that a fisherman had disturbed a highly decomposed corpse when he was out fishing. He heard that the corpse was salvaged from the waters of East Harbor. From the preliminary autopsy results, it was suspected that it was a homicide, so he was asked to identify the corpse. Furthermore, Yoon Yeching was also listed as a suspect because he did not report his wife and daughter missing for so many days. Yoon Yeching hurried to the police station. Due to an impromptu meeting, it had been delayed until now. He waited for an entire afternoon. Yoon Shusha's face darkened when she heard this. Chapter 1887. That's unlikely, right? The more Yoon Shusha listened, the more incredulous she felt. She shook her head and said, Mom and Yoon Na have been missing for months. If they were killed, their bodies would have decomposed into white bones by now. I've mentioned this before, too. However, the police said that the time of death hasn't been confirmed yet. Furthermore, the body was salvaged from the sea with heavy rocks tied to it. The body was also severely deformed due to the strong water pressure. Therefore, the initial suspicion is that the body sank thousands of meters underwater. Very few creatures can survive at such depths, and the body will take a year or even a few years to completely decompose. After a long period of time, the rope was immersed in the water and the body was slowly washed up by the sea. When it was salvaged, a third of the body was eaten by fishes. It was a horrible sight. Yoon Shusha felt nauseous when she heard this. So, do we need to identify the body later? She asked. Yoon Yeching nodded solemnly. Yoon Shusha sighed and sat down beside him. Mu Yaja glanced at the pale-faced Yoon Yeching and turned to pour him a cup of hot water. Uncle, drink some water. You don't look good. Yoon Yeching thanked him profusely, looking a little uneasy. Mu Yaja sat down beside him and patted his shoulder gently. Uncle, don't be nervous and don't think too much. Yoon Yeching shook his head helplessly. My mind is in a mess right now, so I'm not thinking too much. I'm just wondering who this body belongs to. Could it be Lee Chin? Or Yoon Na? Yoon Yeching's heart wrenched at the thought of this possibility. There was a saying that even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. No matter how disappointing Yoon Na was, she was still his flesh and blood. No matter how much he hated her, it was an indescribable pain to see his child die before him. Yoon Yeching rubbed his hands and lowered his head without saying a word. He sat in his seat and appeared to be calm on the surface, but his heart was in turmoil. Memories of Yoon Ene's innocent and adorable childhood flashed through his mind, especially when she was just born. He held her in his arms, and that kind of tender love and pride. He prayed in his heart that the corpse that was retrieved was not his wife or Yoon Ene. Although they had done many foolish things in the past, they did not wish for the corpse to be any of them. How could Yoon Shusha not have mixed feelings? She thought that they had gone missing because they had left home without saying goodbye. Who would have thought that his whereabouts were unknown, and that he might have died in a bizarre manner? Was it fished up from the sea? Yoon Yeching suddenly raised his head and asked tentatively, "Shusha, do you hope that the corpse is?" "I don't." She knew he wanted to ask that. But her answer was that she didn't want to. Yoon Yeching nodded and smiled in relief. "I thought you hated her." "Dad, hate is hate. But I'm not so cruel as to kill someone just because I hate them." Mu Yaja raised his hand to look at his watch. It had been an hour since they arrived, but the police still hadn't come out to greet them. The excessive neglect made him a little unhappy. Thus, he dialed a number and walked to the side to give a few instructions. Not long after, the police chief rushed over, looking travel-worn. Chapter 1888. Chairman Mu. How do you do? Why are you here? I'm truly ashamed of my lack of hospitality. The old chief smiled and raised both hands, intending to shake hands with him. Mu Yaja stood at the same spot with his hands in his trousers. He glanced coldly at the pair of hands that the man had extended to him, but his face remained cold and detached. He had no intention of shaking hands with him. It was as if he was stingy with basic greetings when it came to the old man. The old bureau chief was stunned. His hot face was stuck to a cold butt, and his nose was covered in dust. He was a little embarrassed. He looked down at his hands and realized that his fingertips were stained with dust. He quickly wiped his hands on his clothes and smiled. "Chairman Mu, I'm sorry for the neglect. Please don't take it to heart." Only then did Mu Yaja gently shake his hand. Even so, his fingers did not curl at all. It was just an empty grip for a moment before he retracted his hand. However, the old director was already very satisfied. He was happy to shake hands with the rumored cold and arrogant CEO of Disheng Financial Group in front of everyone. It was a great honor for him, and he was very satisfied. Mu Yaja was already giving him a lot of face. The old bureau chief had been in a meeting at the headquarters when he received a call from his superiors. He knew that a distinguished guest had appeared in the bureau under his jurisdiction. He immediately reported it to the headquarters and rushed back in a hurry without having time to continue the meeting. "Chairman Mu, I'm really sorry. I was in a meeting at the headquarters earlier, so I didn't know you were coming. It's just that, Chairman Mu, is there anything I can help you with?" the old chief asked cheerfully. Yoon Yecheng, who was standing at the side, was frightened and surprised at the same time. More than that, he felt that the old chief was too snobbish. He stood at the side and asked a few questions, but the old chief ignored them all. Instead, he asked about Mu Yaja's well-being. It was obvious that he did not care about him at all. Mu Yaja interrupted the old chief's greetings. "My father-in-law received a summons from the police station to come and identify the body. He has been waiting here for an entire afternoon, but no one has come to give him an explanation. Whether it's identifying the corpse or cooperating with the investigation, you haven't even gone through the normal procedures. How busy is your bureau?" His words were calm and indifferent, but they were filled with judgment. Breaking out in a cold sweat, he stiffly turned around to look at Yoon Yecheng, who was standing at the side. This ordinary-looking middle-aged man was actually the father-in-law of the Mu Group's chief executive. He suddenly felt as if an iron weight had fallen from the sky, causing him to feel dizzy and disoriented. Thus, the old chief immediately went up to Yoon Yecheng. His face bloomed like a flower as he asked politely, "My apologies. I'm sorry. Sorry to keep you waiting. I didn't expect him to be Chairman Mu's father-in-law. Haha. May I know your surname?" "My surname is Yoon." "How do you do, Chief?" Yoon Yecheng suppressed his displeasure and greeted the man politely. "Excuse me, your bureau summoned me here. It said that a corpse was salvaged from the sea, and they need me to identify it." The old chief became serious at once when he said that. A corpse? Has it been filed? I just received a call from your bureau, so I rushed over immediately. I don't know anything about the progress of the case, so I'm very anxious. Chapter 1889. With that, the old police chief led him and Yoon Shusha to the office. Mu Yaja followed behind. It was only when they entered the office that they realized that the police officers, whom Yoon Yeching had imagined to be busy, were sitting in the office, drinking tea and joking leisurely. When they saw the old police chief enter, they immediately stood up straight and regained their serious expressions. Hello, Chief. Mu Yaja glanced at the noisy office and frowned. It seems that your bureau is very busy. Busy drinking tea and chatting. The old police chief's face was full of embarrassment. He coughed, patted the table, and said sternly, "Is this your work attitude when I'm not in the bureau? Are all of you very free?" Everyone was shocked and lowered their heads guiltily. They were so scared that they did not even dare to breathe loudly. In front of Mu Yaja, the old police chief pretended to reprimand this bunch of people. As for these people, which one of them did not know how to read people's expressions? From the old police chief's expression, they roughly knew that it was either a superior who had come to investigate or a distinguished guest. They were very cooperative in putting on a show. This old gentleman received a summons from the bureau to come over to identify the body. Who's in charge of this case? Step forward. A young police officer stepped forward. Excuse me, are you Mr. Yoon? Yoon Yeching glanced at him and felt angry. He had been sitting on a bench outside the door for a long time, yet the person in charge of the case was laughing and joking inside. How could he not be angry? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I was busy just now and only had time to take a sip of tea. How about this? Come with me. I'll bring you to identify the victim's clothes and belongings. With that, Yoon Yeching and Yoon Shusha followed him into the morgue. Mu Yaja also wanted to follow. The old police chief immediately stopped him. Chairman Mu, please sit here for a while. I'll report to you if there's anything. Yoon Shusha also said, wait for me here. Okay. I'll wait for you. Mu Yaja nodded. If you're hungry, you can go and have dinner first. Remember to call the two little guys and tell them that I may not have time to have dinner with them. Okay, don't worry. Yoon Shusha nodded and followed him. The body was in the autopsy room. Because it was involved in a murder case, the body could not be brought back for burial. After entering the autopsy room and putting on masks and sterile gloves, the police officer led them to the display room. Opening the box, one of the bags was filled with personal belongings collected from the scene where the body was found, and the other bag was filled with the victim's clothes. Even though the clothes had been corroded by the seawater for a long time, causing them to fade and become tattered due to the impact of the current and the fishes, Yoon Yeching could still recognize them at a glance. They were the clothes he had bought for Lee Chin on her birthday at the mall. She was still wearing it that day at the hospital. Then, the mother and daughter disappeared without a trace. As soon as he saw that piece of clothing, there was a boom in his head. It's her. Yoon Yeching was dumbfounded. His face was ashen as if it had been painted white. Chapter 1890. Yoon Shusha was stunned for a moment. She barely recognized the clothes. They were the clothes that Lee Chin had worn before. She wore a red jacket and was dressed in high-end fashion. Lee Chin loved to dress up, so even though they were tight on money, she was always willing to splurge on her clothes. These were the clothes she wore in the summer. Judging from this, if this body really belonged to Lee Chin, then she had already been killed in the summer. Could it be a coincidence? Yoon Shusha was still in disbelief as she raised a guess. There are some personal belongings of the deceased here. Please come and identify them. The police officer placed the bag of belongings on the table and pointed. A watch, a black wallet, an earring, a gold ring, and a jade bracelet. Yoon Shusha and Yoon Yeching walked over. Yoon Yeching stretched out his trembling hand and sorted out the items. He immediately took a deep breath of cold air, his eyes filled with heartache. It's her. It's my wife. Yoon Yeching kept mumbling. He nodded and shook his head. Lee Chin's sudden death made him feel a little lost and sad. How could such a good person be gone just like that? He really could not figure this out. The police officer shook his head and said, "The autopsy report is not out yet, so we can't come to a conclusion, but one thing is for sure, she was murdered." Murdered? Yoon Yeching turned pale with fright, somewhat in disbelief. She didn't have any feuds with anyone. Even if she did, it would be a conflict between neighbors. How could she be murdered? Her body was even dumped in the sea. I really can't figure it out. The police officer kept quiet and observed him silently. As Lee Chin's husband, Yoon Yeching was also a big suspect in her bizarre death. Therefore, as a suspect, the police officer began to observe him silently from the moment he spoke. Yoon Yeching did not notice the police officer's careful scrutiny and suddenly made a request. "Can I take a look at her?" The police officer replied, "The body is in the autopsy room. It's not convenient for you to take a look at it now." "Why?" "Because the autopsy is still in progress and the body is highly decomposed." "Are you sure you want to take a look?" Yoon Yeching sighed. "No matter what, we have to take one last look at the person who's gone." Yoon Shusha also said, "Officer, sorry to trouble you. My father wants to take one last look." The police officer nodded. On the way to the autopsy room, the police officer suddenly asked, "Your name is Yoon Shusha, right?" Yoon Shusha was surprised and asked, "How do you know my name?" "First, during the investigation, we will be able to find out the details of your identity. Secondly, the green apple is very popular and has a good reputation. I watched it with my girlfriend a few days ago. Your performance was outstanding. My girlfriend was affected by the movie and cried her eyes out. I don't know how to comfort her." In this tense environment, he said something that was not related to the case to lighten his mood. This way, they could better observe the suspect. As a family member, Yoon Shusha was also listed as one of the suspects. Even though the police officer knew that as a celebrity and a public figure, he wouldn't ruin his future with such a thing. Chapter 1891. Yoon Shusha, on the other hand, could not calm herself down. She was not in the mood to exchange pleasantries with her and just brushed her off with a few perfunctory words. When they reached the autopsy room, the police officer took out his key and opened the door. The moment Yoon Yeching and Yoon Shusha stepped in, they smelled an extremely pungent smell of rotting corpses. There were a few tables in the autopsy room. On one of the tables was a corpse, but it did not look human at all. The corpse was highly decomposed. Moreover, after being soaked in seawater for a long time and being corroded, it looked like a giant. It was swollen beyond recognition, and its hair seemed to have fallen off. Its face had become extremely hideous. This was not considered disgusting. The most disgusting thing was that after being eaten by a school of fish, the flesh and blood had been separated, and the body was riddled with holes. A large portion of one of its arms had been cut off, and its legs were extremely twisted and crooked. The corpse's clothes were all removed. Because of the autopsy, the chest and stomach had been cut open, and the head had been cut open for samples to be tested. The decomposition was too severe. The smell of rotting corpses was different from that of ordinary creatures. This kind of stench was rather disgusting and nauseating. Amidst the extreme rancidity, there was also a hint of sourness. Yoon Shusha held her breath, but she still could not resist the pungent smell. She stood hesitantly at the door. Even though she was wearing a thick mask, she could not resist the smell. She did not know if she would vomit in front of the police officer and Yoon Yeching if she took a few more steps forward. The police officer kindly reminded her from the side, "If you find the smell very pungent, you can stay away." "Is the autopsy ongoing?" Yoon Yeching asked while enduring the pungent smell. The police officer nodded. "The autopsy is ongoing, but please understand that the condition of the corpse is too, the few experienced forensic doctors we hired can't stand to face the corpse for a long time. Therefore, the autopsy process is very long and has been ongoing for more than half a month." Yoon Yeching frowned. Indeed, one could imagine how serious the autopsy scene was. Yoon Yeching calmed down for a moment and walked toward the autopsy table. Just as he took a few steps forward, he came in contact with the pungent smell of rotting flesh. Unable to bear it any longer, he turned around abruptly and felt a strong wave of nausea. "Mr. Yoon, don't force yourself. This scene is really not something an ordinary person can bear." Yoon Yecheng waved his hand and walked to the side of the autopsy table. He lowered his head to look at the corpse and its ugly and hideous face. His heart ached, and tears fell from his eyes at once. It's too tragic. He had thought of countless outcomes, but he had never thought that it would be like this. No matter how unbearable Li Qin was, she was still his wife. They had been together for so many years, but one day, she appeared in such a pathetic state in front of him. Li Qin, who did this to you? Yoon Shusha immediately went up to support him and consoled him. Dad, don't be sad. She's already gone. How can it be gone just like that? And to die. Of all the things she shouldn't have done, she shouldn't have died such a miserable death. Tears streamed down Yoon Yecheng's face of. Chapter 1892. Yoon Yecheng quickly agreed. Okay. When they reached the interrogation room, the police officer invited the couple in. After taking the documents, he sat down opposite them. Yoon Yecheng looked a little uneasy and asked, I'd like to ask, your question can be put aside for now. I have to go through the process first. Yoon Yecheng nodded in surprise. Your wife is called Li Qin. She's 49 years old this year, right? Yoon Yecheng nodded. Yes. If she's still alive, she'll be celebrating her 50th birthday soon. May I ask if your wife has any grudges with anyone before this? Yoon Yecheng replied, I don't think so. She rarely has any deep grudges with others. Although her character isn't good and she often quarrels with others, I've never heard of her having any deep grudges with anyone. How's your relationship with your neighbors? Yoon Yecheng thought for a while. Not really. She's quite sharp-tongued and often quarrels with her neighbors. She's not on good terms with them. Didn't she do anything suspicious before she went missing? Yoon Yecheng shook his head. Okay. If that's the case, may I ask? The police officer paused for a moment before probing, how's your relationship as husband and wife? Yoon Yecheng sighed and answered truthfully, our relationship isn't very good, and we often quarrel with each other. She's a very crafty and unreasonable person. Plus, she's probably going through menopause. So, we're always arguing about trivial things. Did you get physical when you quarreled? Yoon Yecheng smiled bitterly. Yes. She'll get physical when she's anxious, but I've never hit her. The police officer recorded this on the document and asked anxiously, in that case, your relationship as husband and wife is very bad. You can say that. The police officer asked again, where was the last time you saw her? And when? Yoon Yecheng replied, I can't remember the time, but the last time I saw her was in the hospital with my daughter. Your daughter? Yes. At that time, my daughter was in the hospital. Something happened to my daughter and her face was disfigured. She wanted me to pay for her daughter's treatment. But at that time, I really didn't have any money, so because of this, we had a big fight and divorced. Later, when I returned to the hospital, the mother and daughter were gone. Mother and daughter? A sharp glint flashed in the police officer's eyes. Yes. My daughter, Yoon is also missing. We understand the situation. Your daughter and wife went missing at the same time. Yoon Yecheng replied agitatedly, that's what I wanted to ask earlier. My daughter is missing, too. But now, I don't even know where my daughter is, nor do I know what's going on. He was afraid that Yoon had also met with misfortune. This time, Li Qin's body was salvaged from the sea, but there was still no news about Yoon who he cared about the most. The police officer asked a sharp question, since the person has been missing for so long, why didn't you call the police immediately? Yoon Yecheng was stunned. The police officer questioned him suspiciously. Logically speaking, when your wife and daughter go missing, as a husband and father, you should be very anxious. Chapter 1893. Yoon Yecheng shook his head and sighed again. At that time, I had a huge argument with her and it escalated to the point of a divorce. I had to leave the hospital because of something. When I came back, both mother and daughter were gone. I thought that she had left home because she was disheartened by the marriage, so I really didn't think of this possibility. If I had known, I would have called the police. Who would have thought that she would meet with an accident? The police officer nodded. After understanding the situation, he asked Yoon Shusha a few more questions. After taking the statement and taking their fingerprints, Yoon Shusha and Yoon Yeching left the interrogation room. Mu Yaja was outside the door, talking to Yo-Yo on the phone. Just as Yoon Shusha walked out, Mu Yaja ended the call. "How's the identification of the body?" he asked. Yoon Shusha shook her head with a grave expression. "It's her." She was already very indifferent to Li Qin. To put it bluntly, she really did not feel much when she saw Li Qin's body, but she was still a little dazed. The impact of seeing a person who was originally alive appear in such a hideous state in front of her was indescribable. Hence, this was the only thing she felt. However, Yoon Yeching was different. After all, they had been husband and wife for decades. Being separated by life and death was still an indescribable pain. Yoon Yeching was in a daze from the blow. His mind was still a little muddled as Yoon Shusha helped him to the bench. The old chief walked out and reported to Mu Yaja. Then, he asked them to go home first, saying that he would inform them once there was any progress in the case. Yoon Yeching asked, "Can we take the body back? She's already gone and we want a proper burial." The old chief shook his head and said, "I'm afraid not. Because it's involved in a murder case, I'm afraid we can't bury her before the autopsy report is done. As the case is being investigated, we need to investigate it at any time." Yoon Yeching's eyes were indescribably cold. "All right. Then I'll wait for your news." When Yo-Yo received a call from Mu Yaja, he found out that a body suspected to be Li Qin's. He frowned and hung up the phone. He sat on the sofa, unable to calm down. He's dead. How did he die? Little Munchkin had completely forgotten that he had something to do with Li Qin's death. However, he had forgotten that Li Qin's death was his doing. It was only natural that he did not remember. Because at that time, when he gave that order, his entire mental state appeared to be sick, almost as if he had gone mad. His purest personality had long disappeared, leaving only coldness. Yo-Yo himself did not know that his personality was very divided. In front of Yoon Shusha, she was pure, kind, gentle, and beautiful. But when she turned around, she was cold and cruel. This was not because she was good at acting. Instead, it was a kind of personality distortion, dual personality. This was inseparable from his complicated childhood. He had been living in a dark world since he was a child. In addition, he was unwell and his family environment was terrible. On one side, he had Yoon Shusha's meticulous care and care. She was gentle and meticulous. On the other side, Li Qin and Yoon Na were viciously torturing and abusing them. It was inhumane torture and oppression. At the same time, in order to protect Yoon Shusha, the kind-hearted Yu silently endured a lot. No matter how much he was wronged, he only cared about himself and endured it without saying a word. Chapter 1894. His personality was split into two extremes. On one hand, he was as dark as a devil. On the other hand, he was as pure as an angel. Therefore, once his personality split and turned dark, his methods were cruel and ruthless. It was not something a 7-year-old child should have. However, after he returned to normal, it was hard for him to remember what he had done. Therefore, Yo-Yo had forgotten what he had done to Li Qin and Yoon Na. Xiao Ichen saw that he was frowning and felt uneasy. "Yo-Yo, you don't look too good. What did Daddy say?" "He said that something happened, so he and Mommy might be a little late. He asked us to wait for him patiently." Xiao Ichen was nervous. "What happened?" Yo-Yo comforted him and said calmly, "Don't worry, you idiot. Daddy and Mommy are fine. However, Grandpa received a call from the police station today. They asked him to go to the police station to identify the body." Little Ichen was stunned when he heard this. "A corpse?" "Yes. Whose body is it?" Yo-Yo smiled coldly. When he mentioned Li Qin, his face was incomparably cold. He said casually, "Grandpa has a wife whom he has been married to for decades. Her name is Li Qin. She is Mommy's adoptive mother. According to seniority, I should call her Grandma. However, she is a bad person. She often bullies Mommy, so I don't want to call her Grandma." Pausing for a moment, he said slowly, "Some time ago, she and her daughter both disappeared without a trace. Less than a month ago, a fisherman fished up a body from the sea. It matched the woman's characteristics, so he asked Grandpa to identify it. Mommy is also with Grandpa. I'm afraid they are still cooperating with the police to record their statement. Xiao Ichen frowned and was a little speechless. They disappeared without a trace. How did they get fished up from the sea? It doesn't look like suicide. It looks more like a premeditated murder. What do you mean? Intuition. Xiao Ichen smiled. During his years in the special training camp, investigation was one of the most important subjects. Therefore, his consciousness and intuition were especially sharp. Yo-Yo was stunned. Xiao Ichen placed his hands behind his back and smiled at him. Then, he slowly said, apart from my intuition, if I were to calm down and analyze the situation, I wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to jump into the sea. Think about it, the capital's coastal theme is the estuary where the Longping River flows into the East China Sea. If it was suicide, then she would have to take a boat to the East China Sea to complete the condition of suicide. You have to know that there are only a few ports in the capital. The ports are tightly sealed, so I suspect that it was murder. I suspect foul play. Xiao Ichen's words instantly disrupted Yo-Yo's train of thought. It was as if many fragmented fragments had been squeezed into his mind. There were the sounds of women begging for mercy, crying, and wailing, accompanied by thoughts that were surging like waves, rising and falling. His mind quickly fell into chaos. He fell onto the sofa in a daze and held his aching forehead. He fell into an inexplicable state of shock and uneasiness. Fragments of memories flashed before his eyes like a merry-go-round. Chapter 1895. Go ahead and cry. Your mommy isn't home now. Let's see who's going to help you. Let's see who's going to protect you. Isn't it too easy to just throw her into the pond? Chop them up and feed them to the sharks. Their deaths aren't worth pitying. I'll give you the money. You deal with the people. Do you understand? Agent Lee, give him the money. Yo-Yo, don't be blinded by hatred. It was as if a fountain had instantly gushed out from the depths of his memories. It was the scene of Yoon Na crying as she knelt before him and ceaselessly begged for mercy. Yo-Yo, you. Yo-Yo, it's Auntie's fault. It's Auntie's fault. Auntie was blind in the past. It's Auntie's fault. Auntie swears that I won't bully you anymore. And I won't bully your mommy anymore. Yo-Yo, do you really want to kill us? I know that you're just scaring us. We were wrong. At the very least, for the sake of your grandfather, please let us live. Do you know? You're hiring someone to kill us. It's illegal. It's intolerable. Boo-hoo, Yo-Yo. I don't want to die. I beg you, spare me. Her sharp and piercing cries kept ringing in his ears, pounding on his eardrums. Yo-Yo clenched his fists tightly and sat on the sofa. His entire body was unbelievably stiff. Xiao Ichen saw that he was in a terrible state and couldn't help but touch his hand. When his fingertips touched it, he suddenly realized that he was covered in cold sweat. Yo-Yo. Xiao Ichen called his name, but the little guy didn't react immediately. Yo-Yo, what's wrong? Yo-Yo suddenly came back to his senses. His eyes widened as he looked at Xiao Ichen's face in shock. What's wrong? Why do you look so pale? When Yo-Yo came to her senses, she realized that her limbs were cold and her breathing was rapid. Her back, in particular, was drenched in cold sweat. I think I killed someone. He suddenly gripped his arm tightly, his brows furrowed. The memories of breaking through the seal of dust repeatedly stimulated him, reminding him that he had once given a very cruel order. Did you know? You're hiring a hitman. It was against the law. This was intolerable. Yu stood up abruptly from the sofa. The sudden movement startled little Ichen, who was a little restless, and he quickly got up from the sofa as well. What did you just say? Xiao Ichen was a little confused. You said, you killed someone? I need to go out for something. As she spoke, Yo-Yo took out her phone and dialed Lee Hanlin's number. Agent Lee, come and pick me up. Yes, President Yoon. Yo-Yo walked to the entryway, took a jacket, put it on, and was about to leave. Mu Ichen hurriedly chased after her. Yo-Yo, where are you going? Yo-Yo turned around and reminded her, be good and stay at home. If Daddy and Mommy ask about me when they come back, cover for me. After she finished speaking, she slammed the door shut, leaving Xiao Chen standing there in a daze. Xiao Chen was dumbfounded. Then, she hugged her arms angrily and said angrily, "What the hell? You left me alone at home and went out to fool around by yourself for no reason at all. I hate Yo-Yo the most." Chapter 1896. However, out of consideration for Yun Shusha's feelings, he did not reveal too much of his heartache. In the past, when the Yun family was still considered to be prosperous and respectable, the couple was very loving and respectful to each other. Perhaps because they did not have to worry about food and clothing, Li Qin was very obedient to Yun Yeqing. Therefore, even when Yun Yeqing wanted to adopt Yun Shusha, Li Qin did not stubbornly object. After a few arguments, she agreed to it. However, she was not her biological child, after all. Moreover, her original intention was to adopt a boy. Hence, her attitude toward Yun Shusha was very bad. Later, when the Yun family went bankrupt, Li Qin thought that she would have to live a life of hardship with Yun Yeqing after a few years of glory and wealth. There was a saying that went, "Poor couples have 100 sorrows." This saying was not wrong at all. When they were rich, they could easily buy a branded coat that cost tens of thousands. When they were poor, daily necessities like rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea became luxuries. After the bankruptcy, the family was at their wits' end. Li Qin was used to living a life of luxury. Now that the family was poor, she had to worry about trivial matters. Naturally, her temper became worse. The couple's relationship then deteriorated. Now, things were still the same, but the people were different. Yun Yeqing kept his head down and did not say a word, but how could Yun Shusha not know what he was worried about? "Dad, don't think too much. Even if she's gone, don't let your imagination run wild." "Sigh, I'm just worried. I know you're worried about Yun Na's whereabouts." Yun Shusha frowned and covered the back of his hand. "Don't worry, I'll definitely find Yun Na. Her mother is gone, and we don't know where she went. Could she have met with an accident, too? That police officer just said that Li Qin was killed by someone, so where is Yun Na now? How can I be at ease now that we don't know whether she's dead or alive?" Yun Shusha's expression was grave. She was actually thinking that since Li Qin's body had been found, it was really hard to say whether Yun Na was dead or alive. She had a feeling that Yun Na had also met with an accident. Hence, she did not know how to comfort him when he let his imagination run wild. She could only tell him not to think too much. When they reached home, Yun Shusha realized that little Munchkin was gone. Xiao Chen was sitting alone in the living room, watching television with his head propped up. Seeing that they had finally returned, she ran over and called out sweetly, "Daddy, Mommy, Grandpa." "Yes. Where is Yo-Yo?" Yun Shusha looked around but did not see Yo-Yo. Xiao Chen scratched his head and replied slowly, "Yo-Yo." He could not help but frown as he blamed Yo-Yo in his heart. This guy had left him here alone and left him with such a huge mess. How was he supposed to respond? Mu Yaja frowned. Where did that kid go? He seems to have been taken away by someone just now. By whom? I think it was Agent Li. Agent Li? Yun Shusha was obviously unfamiliar with this title. Mu Yaja reacted at once. Agent Li should be the principal of his former kindergarten. Yun Shusha nodded. She had met Yo-Yo once when he was in the hospital. That principal seemed to treat Yo-Yo as his own. She calmed down and gave Yo-Yo a call. The call was quickly connected. Chapter 1897. Yo-Yo replied, "Mommy, I'm sorry. The principal said that he wants to treat me to dessert, so he won't do it again. It's already so late. Mommy will be worried." Okay. Yo-Yo coaxed her with a cheeky smile. "Mommy, I'm not a child. Don't worry. After I finish the dessert, the principal will send me home safely." Yun Shusha's lips twitched violently. She fell silent. A 7-year-old child said to her, "I'm not a child." No matter how she heard it, it sounded strange. "Okay, don't play tricks with me. If you don't want Mommy to worry, remember to come home early. Don't be playful. You have to be polite outside." "I know. Mommy, don't worry." After hanging up the phone, Yoon Shusha carried Xiao Chen and asked gently, "Baby, are you hungry? Mommy is late. As compensation, what do you want to eat? Mommy will make it for you." Xiao Chen shuddered when he heard this. He said softly, "Mommy, if you really want to make it up to me, you should take me out for a meal." Yoon Shusha's fragile heart received a heavy blow. Was her culinary skills that bad? She compromised. "Then, what do you want to eat? Mommy will take you out to eat." "I don't mind." "Mommy, why don't you ask for Grandpa's opinion? Xiao Chen will eat whatever Grandpa wants to eat." The little guy's thoughtfulness made Yoon Yecheng smile knowingly. The gloominess that had accumulated in his heart dissipated a lot. He took Xiao Chen from Yoon Shusha's arms and could not help teasing him. "Xiao Chen is so sensible. If Grandpa eats cornbread, will Xiao Chen eat it too? Of course. Whatever Grandpa wants to eat, Xiao Chen will treat him." Xiao Chen patted his waist bag and giggled. "Xiao Chen has a lot of money on him. Hee hee." Yoon Yecheng, on the other hand, was amused by his son's words. He caressed the boy's little head lovingly and could not bear to part with him. The atmosphere was joyous and harmonious. Yo-Yo sat in the front passenger seat and fiddled with the child's safety seat in disgust. She said mercilessly, "Don't install this thing in the future. It's uncomfortable." Lee Hanlin fell silent. "Director Yoon, as a child seat is a must. Otherwise, if the traffic police stop me, I will be criticized and educated." Yo-Yo looked at the sky. Lee Hanlin regained his composure and asked, "Director Yoon, what can I do for you this time?" Yo-Yo pondered for a moment and said slowly, "Today, the police summoned my grandfather and mommy to the police station. They said that there is a corpse that needs to be identified." Hearing this, Lee Hanlin was very sharp. He suddenly realized something, and his face suddenly darkened. Yo-Yo turned to look at him and said, "Help me contact the police. I want to see the autopsy report." "Which police station is it?" Yo-Yo shook his head. He did not know which police station it was. Since it was salvaged from the sea, the East Harbor branch should have a file on it. "Don't alert the enemy. I have some connections in the police station. It shouldn't be difficult to get a copy of the autopsy report." As Lee Hanlin spoke, he noticed that Yo-Yo's face was shockingly pale. His gaze fell on his hands on his knees. Even his fingertips were trembling. It was obvious that he was extremely uneasy. "Director Yoon, what's wrong?" Lee Hanlin asked with concern and heartache. "Agent Lee, I'm scared." Chapter 1898. Yo-Yo's shoulders curled up slightly. "I think there's something dirty on my hands. I'm scared. I'm scared that if Mommy finds out about this, she'll hate me and be scared of me." He knew very well that he had only given the order and that he did not kill Li Qin and Yoon Na with his own hands. However, Li Qin and Yoon Na's deaths were caused by him. He was not afraid of killing. What he was afraid of was that once his hands were stained with sin, he would never be able to wash them clean. What he was afraid of was that he would become a sinful person, a person that his mommy feared and was disappointed in. Back then, the reason why he wanted to kill Yoon Na and Li Qin was because he found out from Li Dongqiang that Yoon Na had secretly framed his mommy. He was so angry that he wanted to send those two women who had committed the most heinous crimes to hell. However, when he came back to his senses and calmed down, he realized that he had been blinded by hatred at that time and had lost his rationality. He did not regret what he had done. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, only by becoming stronger could he protect the people he loved. However, he was afraid that his mommy would hate him because of this. What would happen if his mommy found out? Paper could not wrap fire. He did not dare to imagine how disappointed and cold his mommy would be if she found out that he was the culprit behind this matter. In his mommy's world, she was so innocent and yearned for an ordinary and peaceful life. However, if she found out that her most beloved and obedient son had his hands stained with blood, Yo-Yo was so shocked that he took a deep breath. Lee Hanlin's heart ached as he held his hand tightly. "President Yoon, don't worry. I'll take care of this matter for you." He comforted him again and again, but Yo-Yo still could not help but stiffen. His shoulders, especially, could not stop trembling. It was obvious that he was afraid from the bottom of his heart. Lee Hanlin made a phone call on the way back. Then, he drove Yo-Yo back to Laji Holdings headquarters. In the office, he poured Yo-Yo a glass of Coke. Yo-Yo suddenly looked up and held his arm tightly. Agent Lee. Lee Hanlin raised his eyebrows patiently and looked at him with a gentle smile. Please tell me. Have you killed anyone before? Lee Hanlin frowned and fell silent. Yo-Yo's bright and deep eyes looked at him quietly. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions, helplessness, and curiosity. At this moment, Yu had lost his usual composure and calmness. He looked at his father helplessly, like an innocent and naive child who had done something wrong. He felt extremely guilty. Lee Hanlin smiled and shook his head. I've never killed anyone. Yo-Yo's heart skipped a beat, and she felt even more uneasy. He suddenly asked in a low voice, let me ask you, is killing someone an unforgivable evil? Yes. Lee Hanlin blinked his eyes and said bluntly, Director Yoon, according to the logic of ordinary people, no one has such supreme power, much less the right to take away anyone's life. Yo-Yo fell silent. There's nothing wrong with that matter. You're the one at fault. What do you mean? Lee Chin and Yoon Na are greedy and insatiable. They hurt your family. To you, this is an unforgivable crime. They ended up like this because you're stronger than them. There's nothing wrong with a person being strong. Chapter 1899. Lee Hanlin continued to explain, this is a world where the strong prey on the weak. The so-called laws are just rules set by humans standing at the top of the food chain. But isn't this also the fundamental meaning of the law of the jungle? Big fish eat small fish eat shrimps, shrimps eat mud, and humans eat fish. Deer eat grass, wolves eat deer, lions eat wolves, and humans hunt and kill lions. This is unfair to begin with. But in this world, there is no creature stronger than humans, so humans set the rules of the game, and there is no reproach. This is the law. Therefore, the law of the jungle, Huron's justice. There are many unimaginable darkness in this world. Either you don't touch it, or you become the strong. Lee Hanlin sighed and gently hugged his shoulder. Mr. Yoon, your mistake is that you are still too young. At such a young age, you should have had a carefree childhood, but you stepped into a world that ordinary people can't imagine. Yo-Yo's world was already different from Yoon Shush's. He stepped into an extremely dark world, and it was this dark world that set the supreme rules of the game. He was worth hundreds of millions and sat on an inexhaustible wealth. The toy drawings he designed could be used in missile development. Once the Sky Eye project he participated in was successful, the entire Sky network would be blocked. The Hurricane Group behind him made a living from war. The smoke and war in this world were extremely cruel. But as the ruler, the Hurricane Group had already controlled the rules of life and death. For the time being, not to mention the arms transactions between the Hurricane Group and the governments and royal families of various countries, the arms sales to war-torn areas alone were enough to kill thousands of people overnight. But was this a sin? It was just a kind of capital for the strong. The most evil thing in the world was the human heart. Yo-Yo took a sip of cola and bit the straw. He understood what Lee Hanlin wanted to say. Lee Hanlin asked him, Mr. Yoon, I just want to ask, will you regret it? Regret? From the moment you joined the Hurricane Group for a few days, the sin on your hands can no longer be washed away. Do you regret it? Lee Hanlin asked gently. On the one hand, he felt sorry for him. He was just a child, a 7-year-old child. There was no need for him to come into contact with this cruel world so early. The Gong family was famous for their fighting prowess. As the leader of the World War, the Hurricane Group was not to be underestimated. Yo-Yo smiled and lifted his head. The confusion and uneasiness in his heart were swept away. I have no regrets. Why? Because that's the only way I can become a powerhouse. Even if my hands are stained with sin, I will protect Mommy and not let her come to any harm. He had had enough of cowardice, enough of being weak, enough of being bullied. She didn't want to recall the dark bits and pieces of her childhood. He would rather be stained with that sin and become the strongest person in the world. Only then would he be able to protect his mother tightly in his arms. When he was strong, his mommy wouldn't be bullied anymore. Only when he was strong could he protect the people he wanted to protect. Li Hanlin smiled knowingly and patted his head. If I had a son as strong as you, I would wake up laughing even in my dreams. If I had such a disappointing father like you, I would wake up crying in my dreams. Li Hanlin was deeply affected. Chapter 1900. Li Hanlin clutched his wounded chest and complained tearfully, Yo-Yo, I'm so sad. I treated you like my own son and loved you like you were my own. But what about you? Not only did you deduct my bonus, but you also shot me down. It's so unfair. Yo-Yo said coldly, Agent Lee, you must always remember that this is a world where the strong prey on the weak. As your superior, it's my right to deduct your bonus. If you're so capable, why don't you deduct my bonus too? Li Hanlin suddenly fell silent and stared at him as if he wanted to say something. After staring at each other for a long time, the two of them smiled at each other and bumped fists tacitly. In fact, even though he was sharp-tongued, Yu still respected the man from the bottom of his heart. In terms of status, Yoon Hanlin was his superior. However, in terms of seniority, he should call him uncle. Li Hanlin had been by his side for a long time and could be considered loyal and devoted. He would not shirk his responsibility even if it meant going through hell. Director Yoon, what do you plan to do next? Yo-Yo closed his eyes slightly and said in a low voice, suppress this matter as soon as possible. At the same time, send someone to see if you can find Yoon Na's whereabout. Yes. Just as he finished speaking, the doorbell rang. Li Hanlin walked over and opened the door. He saw a man in uniform standing outside the door and smiling at him. Hello, Director Lee. I've prepared a copy of the information you requested. Please take a look. As he spoke, the man handed a document to him. Li Hanlin took the document and asked, Is the autopsy report out yet? The man shook his head and replied meticulously, Not yet. The corpse is highly decomposed. Even an experienced forensic doctor can't work for a long time, so the autopsy is going very slowly. All right, you can go back first. Don't mention this to anyone. Yes. Li Hanlin closed the door and handed the document to Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo opened the document expressionlessly. He took out a thick stack of documents and flipped through them page by page. He looked at it very seriously, going through everything in detail, no matter how big or small. As expected, Li Qin's identity was confirmed through the preliminary DNA comparison. It seemed that the corpse was indeed Li Qin. I remember that I asked Li Dongqiang to clean up his hands and feet. Yo-Yo sneered, his eyes cold. Li Hanlin fell silent. He suddenly said, I'm guessing that he must have wanted to drown them in the sea. Generally speaking, once a corpse is drowned in the sea, it will decompose completely within a few months. Even if it's not completely decomposed, the school of fish will devour the corpse until there's nothing left. Li Dongqiang is not a kind person. He is ruthless and merciless. Li Hanlin thought to himself, no matter how ruthless I am not as ruthless as you. However, he didn't dare to say this out loud. Li Hanlin said casually, which one of the gangsters on East Street hasn't killed anyone before? Their days were spent licking blood from the edge of a blade. These people have no principles. They do things as long as they're paid. As for their efficiency, they can't be compared to professional killers. Even if Li Qin's corpse has been found, what about Yoon Na's whereabouts? Yo-Yo raised his doubts. Chapter 1901. Yo-Yo disagreed. Since Li Qin has been found out, we still have to find Yoon Na's whereabouts to play it safe. If she's alive, I want to see her. If she's dead, I want to see her corpse. If there's an accident, it'll be a disaster if we keep her alive. Li Hanlin nodded in agreement, but said hesitantly, the East China Sea is so big. Finding a person is like finding a needle in a haystack. I can only do my best. Yo-Yo put the file on the table and pursed his lips. Indeed, finding a corpse in the sea was like finding a needle in a haystack. He pondered for a moment and said, send someone to deal with the fishermen at the East Port. They go out frequently. If they find anything, suppress the news before calling the police. Li Hanlin nodded. So far, this was probably the only way to deal with the aftermath. Yo-Yo's knuckles gently knocked on the table, but there was a thick layer of hostility between his eyebrows. As for Lee Dongqiang, his hands and feet are dirty. There's no point in keeping him. Understood. Leave it to me. East Street, underground gambling den. It was 2:00 in the morning. It was the time when there was a boiling cauldron of voices. Lee Dongqiang was guarding the den with a cigarette in his mouth. He was like a tiger walking in his territory, patrolling around the den. Suddenly, a servant came over and whispered in his ear, "Boss, someone is looking for you." Lee Dongqiang frowned and glanced at him. "Who's looking for you?" The hooligan shook his head blankly and said vaguely, "I don't know. But he said he has a big business to discuss with you." Big business? Lee Dongqiang's eyes lit up when he heard this. In their line of work, the so-called big business was a code word. It meant that there was a job for him. Therefore, he threw the cigarette butt on the ground and stepped on it. He asked casually, "Where is he?" "He's waiting in the house." Lee Dongqiang ordered, "Watch the den for me. I'll be back soon." As he spoke, he walked towards the house. However, when he walked to the door, his nose keenly caught a suspicious scent of blood. People like him who walked on the fringes were very sensitive to the scent of blood. As soon as he walked to the door, he noticed it. Therefore, his hand that was pushing the door open hesitated for a moment, but he still pushed it open. Just as he was about to step in, he didn't know that a strong man in black standing at the door had grabbed his collar and pushed him. Lee Dongqiang staggered and fell to the ground. As soon as his hand touched the ground, he felt that the ground was sticky. He raised his head and saw a pair of empty eyes. When he saw the corpse lying on the ground, he was shocked. "Holy **T. Lee Dongqiang scolded and heard the door behind him close with a bang. He turned his head warily and saw two men in black guarding the door. One of them walked towards him and grabbed his hair. He raised his head and glanced at him. "You are Lee Dongqiang?" "Yes. Yes, yes. Who the **CK are you?" Lee Dongqiang was so scared that he was tongue-tied. When he came to his senses, he saw that there were 7 or 8 corpses lying on the ground in the house. They were all his subordinates. These people were the ones who had been present when he dealt with Lu Jingtian. They had all been silently silenced. "Get rid of him," one of them ordered. Chapter 1902. Would these men in black give him this chance, though? They grabbed his hair, twisted his neck, and threw him to the ground. Then, they took out their pistols and accurately shot him twice between his eyebrows. Blood splattered everywhere. Lee Dongqiang's body fell weakly to the ground as his body gradually turned cold. She received a message on her phone. Yo-Yo swiped the screen to unlock it. Lee Hanlin sent a short message, "The trash has been cleaned up." Yo-Yo emotionlessly deleted the message and replied with a smiley face. She then placed the phone under her pillow and went to sleep peacefully. Just as Yoon Yeching was waiting for the results of the autopsy, the police summoned him again 2 days later. He rushed to the station, only to receive a notice that the case had been closed. Case closed? Yoon Yeching was puzzled. What exactly happened in these 2 short days that caused him to receive a notice that the case had been closed? The officer in charge of the criminal investigation received him, listed out all the evidence, and explained everything to him. It was only now that Yoon Yeching realized that his disappointing daughter had actually incurred a huge debt outside. The suspect, Lee Dongqiang, has his own territory on East Street and runs an underground gambling den. He's a notorious hoodlum and a frequent visitor to the police station. The officer spread out a few photos for Yoon Yeching to take a look. Only after the officer explained to him did he understand what had happened. Yoon Na wasn't smart and wasn't good at studying. She didn't get into high school and randomly enrolled in a vocational school. However, she didn't stay in the vocational school for long before she was infected by the bad atmosphere in the school and had an unclear relationship with some bad guys in society. She had to take a break from school a few times in the middle of her studies. After she graduated, she did not work hard to find a job immediately. Instead, she continued to hang out with those delinquents. Lee Dongqiang was one of them. Yoon Na often hung out in bars when she was in school. Once, she met Lee Dongqiang, who was still a hoodlum at that time, in a bar. Both of them had some drinks and played together. Lee Dongqiang liked to play with girls, especially those who were still in school. As for Yoon Na, usually, he didn't do proper work, but his bright brain was used in this aspect. On weekends, she would often bring a few girls from her class out to play. On the surface, it was just playing, but in reality, after bringing the girl to the bar, the first thing he did was to make her drink a few glasses of alcohol. Of course, the alcohol was not simple. Naturally, there were some things mixed in. These simple-minded girls had yet to enter society and were ignorant of the ways of the world. They were not on guard at all and fell into the trap after 2 glasses of wine. At this segment, the hooligans that Yoon Na had befriended tore off their disguises and began to reveal their hidden ambitions. Each of them carried a girl and returned to their room happily to enjoy themselves. Often, in the process of having fun, they would record a ***** video. When these girls woke up in the morning, they found themselves lying naked on an unfamiliar bed and were greatly shocked. Chapter 1903. These girls were all people who valued reputation and integrity. How would they dare to go head-to-head with him? Therefore, most of them did not dare to make a fuss about this matter. After the matter was settled, Lee Dongqiang would give Yoon Na a hefty sum of money, a few hundred to a few thousand yuan per girl. An average beauty would be a few hundred, while a superior one would be a few thousand to tens of thousands. It might not be a lot of money, but to Yoon Na, who was just a student at that time, this was an indescribable amount of money. Therefore, with this sum of money, Yoon Na squandered a lot. At that time, the Yoon family had already gone bankrupt, and the poverty of the family caused Yoon Na, who was originally accustomed to the life of a rich young lady, to be completely at a loss. Only by hanging out with Lee Dongqiang would she be able to find that long-lost and numbed happiness. Later on, Yoon Na mixed more and more with Lee Dongqiang. In the past, she would at most play with drinks and karaoke with those people. Gradually, she learned to gamble, take drugs, and skate. There were wins and losses in gambling. Winning less and losing more. Later on, because of continuous losses, Yoon Na's debt became an irreparable hole. She once asked Yoon Yecheng for money, but where did he get the money at that time? He knew that Yoon Na would definitely ask for money to fool around and would not give it to her even if he had it. He had saved up a sum of money to prepare for Shusha's postgraduate entrance exam. Therefore, Yoon Na started to ask Yoon Shusha for money. At first, Yoon Shusha was unwilling to give it to her. She had to spend money everywhere to take care of the sickly Yo-Yo. At that time, she had just entered society and was busy subsidizing the family, helping Yoon Na pay off her debts, and taking care of Yo-Yo. Life was very tight. However, Yoon Na threatened that she had offended some hooligans. If she did not return the money, the hooligans would come looking for her and hurt her family. Yoon Shusha had no choice but to scrape together some money and give it to her. From then on, Yoon Na began to ask Yoon Shusha for money frequently. Yoon Shusha could not stand her exorbitant demands and moved the rented house again and again. Later on, Yoon Na could no longer fill the huge loophole caused by gambling and drug addiction. Hence, she came up with the idea of Yoon Shusha. She tricked Yoon Shusha into the clubhouse and forced her to drink the drug. She also made an agreement with Lee Dongqiang that after the deed was done, not only would her debt be forgiven, but he would also give her another 1 million yuan. Yoon Na was ecstatic. However, this matter was exposed by Mu Yaja. If it weren't for him, Yoon Shusha would have been in deep trouble. What happened next? Yoon Yecheng had a rough idea of what had happened. Once, when he returned home, he bumped into Yoon Na. That time, Lee Dongqiang brought people to collect the debt. Yoon Na really couldn't pay up, so he took turns with her. Yoon Yecheng had heard from Yoon Shusha that Yoon Na was addicted to drugs and gambling. He did not believe it at first, but compared to his sister, he was more inclined to believe Yoon Shusha's words. It was just that he was still a little skeptical. It was only now that he truly believed it. It turned out that this daughter of his was a complete scum. She had been fooling around in society since she was in school. That was not all. She actually had designs on Shusha. Gosh, how could she do such a thing to sell her sister to a few hooligans? Chapter 1904. Yoon Yecheng was in disbelief. It was only when the police took out some relevant evidence and let him listen to the relevant testimonies that he fell numbly into the chair with a face full of heartache. It was the father's fault for not teaching her well. What did he do to raise such a shameless daughter? Sitting in front of the police officer, he was extremely anxious and felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Especially when he heard about Yoon Ene's crimes, he did not know where to put his face. Lee Chin was also aware of this matter, but she did not say it out loud. However, the mother-daughter pair could only blame themselves for being reduced to such a state. If not for Yoon Ene's insatiable greed and selfishness, she would harm others for her own benefit. What about Lee Chin? She was pitifully implicated by this unfilial daughter and died a wrongful death. For a moment, Yoon Yeching did not know what to feel. There was heartache, confusion, and hatred. His hatred for Yoon Ene's ugliness grew. This case could be considered closed at this point. Lee Chin's body had been found, but Yoon Ene's body was probably still undiscovered. The police officer said to him, "The East China Sea is huge. I'm afraid it's like looking for a needle in a haystack if you want to search for the body thoroughly, not to mention whether the body has been decomposed or eaten clean by the fishes. Just the cost of salvaging it is difficult to estimate. It was a coincidence that we found your wife's body. We can only say that we'll do our best. However, we can't guarantee that we'll be able to find your daughter's body. What about the suspect?" Yoon Yeching's voice was hoarse and low. "That murderer who murdered my wife and daughter. When will your department arrest him and bring him to justice?" The police officer replied, "The suspect was killed by his fellow gang members before we sent people to arrest him. He died in a fight with his gang members." "Fellow gang members?" "Yes." The police officer explained that Lee Dongqiang and the gang members had a fierce exchange of gunfire. The police officer took out some photos taken at the scene and showed them to him. Lee Dongqiang, male, 35 years old. He was attacked by a group of unknown people in an underground gambling house 2 nights ago. When we arrived, the scene was a mess. Blood flowed like a river. There were heavy casualties. No one survived. There's such a thing. Yoon Yeching was even more shocked. "Mr. Yoon, I can only ask you to restrain your grief." The police officer comforted him with a few words, then got up and left. Yoon Yeching slumped on the stool, unable to regain his senses for a long time. When Yoon Shusha was still on set, she received a call from Yoon Yeching. After learning about what had happened, she was in a daze for a long time. She thought that it would take a long time for the case to be closed, but she didn't expect it to be closed so soon. After the case was closed, they needed to go through the procedures to claim the body. After settling the paperwork, Yoon Yeching brought Lee Chin's body back to be cremated and buried. Yoon Yeching did not hold a dignified funeral and did not even tell anyone about this matter. He just cremated the body quietly, even though he had a lot of resentment towards Lee Chin. However, a day as husband and wife meant endless devotion for the rest of their lives. Even though Lee Chin had made many mistakes when she was alive, she was already dead. Many of her sins should be scattered with the wind. Chapter 1905. Yoon Yeching could not fork out the money at first. In the end, it was Yoon Shusha who paid for it. He felt guilty and grateful at the same time. Lee Chin was very harsh toward Yoon Shusha when she was alive, yet this filial child was willing to let bygones be bygones and clean up the mess for him. He did not feel good about it. Yoon Shusha, however, said, "Hate is hate, but she's already dead. There's no need for me to be calculative with someone who's already dead. Dad, cherish the people in front of you. It's fine as long as you're happy." "Shusha. Thank you. Dad. I've let you down." He was so regretful that he could not say anything else. "Director Yoon, it's been settled." Lee Hanlin's voice was deep and cryptic over the phone. The meaning behind it was self-evident. Yo-Yo nodded and gave a rare compliment. "I got it. You've managed to settle it in just 2 days. I have to say that you're quite capable." Lee Hanlin was at a loss. He did not know if this little guy was praising or belittling him. As if knowing what the person on the other end was thinking, Yo-Yo calmly replied, "I'm praising you. Does this guy have a very good mind-reading ability? How can he guess what I'm thinking over the phone from so far away?" Agent Lee, we've worked together for so long. It's hard to describe our tacit understanding. You know me, and I know you. Of course, I know what you're thinking, Yo-Yo said lightly, once again guessing what he was thinking. Lee Hanlin was completely speechless. Director Yoon, yes? You must be the reincarnation of a demon. I feel that you're not a normal creature. There was a long silence on the other end. Just as Lee Hanlin was on tenterhooks, Yo-Yo's cold voice sounded from the other end. It's almost the new year. It seems that someone doesn't want his year-end bonus. Director Yoon, don't. I was just joking with you. Before he could finish his sentence, a cold beeping sound came from the other end. Lee Hanlin hugged his phone and felt like crying. Wulan Mountain Public Cemetery. It was sparsely populated. After the winter solstice, this place became unusually bleak. Early in the morning, at the first glimmer of dawn, a thin figure suddenly appeared at the gate. The thin figure was wearing a hooded black sweater. The collar of the sweater was pulled all the way to the neck. A large hat was placed on the top of the head, covering half of the person's face. It was impossible to see the person's appearance clearly. However, judging from her figure, she was a young woman of average height. The woman put her hands in her pockets and slowly walked through the door. The bodyguard stood up and raised his head to look at the newcomer, but a strange feeling arose in his heart. He had seen people sweeping the tombs, but he had never seen them before. It was still early in the morning, when the cemetery had just opened, and they were already sweeping the tombs. Therefore, he walked out of the preservation room. Just as he walked over, he wanted to ask. Before he could reach the man, he was frightened by the strange aura that the man emitted and took half a step back. This woman was clearly a living person. Why was she like a ghost? The bodyguard shook his head and decided not to poke his nose into other people's business. He returned to the preservation room to hide from the wind. The woman suddenly walked toward him. Help me check a name. The bodyguard raised his head and saw that the woman had appeared at the window without making a sound. He was shocked. Chapter 1906. The woman's face was covered by a hat, and she wore a thick mask that covered most of her face. Only a pair of eyes that were as dark as a bottomless abyss could be seen. But were those really human eyes? These were not eyes that a living person should have. There was not a trace of life in them. They were like two empty holes that emitted a biting cold air from the depths. What was more frightening was that the area around her eyes was covered with hideous scars, as if she had been scratched by something sharp. Although the wound had healed, it left a permanent scar. This person, what was going on? She wrapped herself up fully, but there were scars on her face. It was very suspicious. She was neither a human nor a ghost. To be honest, after guarding the tomb for so many years, this was the first time he had been frightened by a living person. The security guard patted his chest and did not wait for him to react. Help me check a name. The woman repeated this sentence eerily, as if she was silently chanting an ancient and terrifying spell. Her voice was low and hoarse, and there was no trace of life in it at all. The security guard's face stiffened for a while, then he took the booklet from the side and asked in a bad mood, "What's the name?" "Lee Chin." "Muzi Lee, is Chin the Chin in piano?" The woman nodded slowly. "Yes. Aya, this name was just added not long ago. It's in the 19th row, 23rd. As soon as he finished speaking, the woman turned around without saying a word and walked towards the tomb. The security guard stared at the woman's back as she left. After a long time, he could not help but spit out a few words. What a strange person. The woman did not walk far. Her footsteps suddenly stopped, and she slowly turned around. A pair of ghostly eyes looked in his direction. The security guard was shocked into silence. He subconsciously bit his lips and smiled at her as if he was trying to please her. Tomb number 5. 19th row, 23rd row. This was a row of newly built tombstones, green and lush. The woman stopped in front of the tombstone. On the tombstone, there was a black and white photo of Lee Chin, and below it were tributes and flowers. The woman slowly knelt on the ground. Her fingertips gently touched the cold photo, and her eyes narrowed slightly. "Nana. Live well, you must avenge Mother. Mother hates it. Mama really hates it." I'll definitely make that bitch live a life worse than death. I'll definitely make her live in pain for the rest of her life. The mournful and desperate cries were still ringing in his ears. The woman silently stroked the cold photo over and over again. In the early morning, the frost and dew were heavy, and the photo was covered with a layer of wet marks. She gently wiped the dampness off the photo bit by bit, as if she was caressing it gently. When the woman left, the flowers in front of the tombstone were trampled to pieces. The security guard watched the figure leave and muttered to himself, more like a ghost than a ghost. He's seriously ill. At night, after Yoon Shusha came back from the set, the family of 4 went to a Western restaurant for dinner. Mu Yaja purposely chose a French restaurant. When Xiao Chen heard that they were going to eat French food again, he was so happy that he danced with joy. I love French cuisine the most. Daddy is wise. Daddy is mighty. When Yo-Yo heard this, she looked like she was about to vomit. Chapter 1907. Whether it was French cuisine, Chinese cuisine, or Japanese cuisine, he had tried cooking all of them. Especially when it came to French cuisine, he was very good at it. It was not for any other reason but because Mommy especially loved French steak with foie gras. Hence, he learned and specialized in French cuisine for a while. He almost threw up from cooking, but Mommy still had a soft spot for French cuisine. Mommy was a godlike person. It seemed like his stupid Mommy really loved French cuisine. The restaurant here has a unique style. Their signature dish is French steak. Mu Yaja carefully flipped through the menu page by page. As he ordered, he introduced the dishes to her. Yoon Shusha was a little surprised. How did you know that I love French steak? Mu Yaja smiled but did not say anything. He silently glanced at Yo-Yo, who was sitting beside her. Yo-Yo smiled slightly. Daddy asked me what Mommy likes to eat the most, so I answered truthfully. As he said this, he said to Mu Yaja, Daddy, you don't know this, but Mommy is a top-notch foodie. With my cooking skills, her taste buds are very picky and she's very picky. If the restaurant Daddy recommends doesn't taste good, Mommy will definitely be disappointed. Yoon Shusha smiled and couldn't help but scratch the bridge of his nose. Oh, you. No matter how good the chef is, he can't be as good as our Yo-Yo. Xiao Ichen quickly flattered, Yo-Yo's cooking is the best. Yo-Yo's steak is the best in the world. Seeing through his flattery, Yu coldly retorted, have you tried the fried steak I've made before? The corners of Mu Ichen's eyes twitched violently. No. Mu Yaja said indifferently, Xiao Ichen, you've grown up. You've hit the nail on the head with your flattery. Yoon Shusha was so amused that she kept laughing. Mu Ichen felt even more uneasy. He suddenly twisted his words and forced logic. What do you mean by flattery? I'm telling the truth. Also, I've tried Yo-Yo's steak before. Yoon Shusha and Yo-Yo looked at each other blankly. When? Dream. Mu Ichen muttered. Dead silence, the 3 of them looked at Mu Ichen pitifully. The latter poked his little finger pitifully, looking extremely aggrieved. It's Yo-Yo's fault for not cooking for me. You little foodie, what else do you know other than eating? Yo-Yo was annoyed at him for being a disappointment and poked his little head. Mu Ichen lowered his little head dejectedly and looked very pitiful. He sighed and complained, I wanted to try Yo-Yo's steak, but in the end, I can only keep it as a memento in my dreams. Yoon Shusha laughed. She felt that this guy was too funny. Mu Yaja was silent. Was this guy born to be a comedian? Isn't it just a steak? I'll make it for you when we get back. Yo-Yo waved his hand heroically, causing Xiao Chen to cheer repeatedly. You too, that's enough. Stop fooling around. Didn't Mommy teach you to maintain a gentleman's demeanor in public? Yo-Yo and Mu Ichen tacitly sat upright and still, obedient. Have you washed your hands? Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen shook their heads. Mu Yaja gently rubbed Mu Ichen's black hair and smiled at her. You order first. I'll bring the 2 guys to wash their hands. Okay. Yoon Shusha suddenly asked, what do you want to eat? Chapter 1908. Mu Yaja got up and walked to the washroom with one hand holding the other child's hand. However, what was slightly interesting was that the 2 little guys were only waist high. One was big, and the other was small, so there was a very distinct height difference. Mu Yaja's 1.88 meters tall height was eye-catching. However, perhaps because he was too tall, he had to lower his posture a little and bend his knees slightly while holding the two children's hands. Therefore, the man did not look as domineering as before. Instead, he looked more gentle and meticulous as a father. He was a young father, 28 years old, but he was the father of two children. Perhaps because of his lack of experience or because he was used to being swift and decisive, he was even a little helpless when facing the two little guys. However, other than being uneasy, there was the gentleness in his father's nature that could not be hidden. Yoon Shusha's eyes curved as she could not help but touch the diamond ring on her ring finger. Her heart was filled with sweet satisfaction. She lowered her head and browsed through the menu, hesitating as she chose the dishes. Sister Song. Here, I'm here. A woman's voice suddenly sounded from the neighboring seat. Yoon Shusha looked up in confusion and was surprised to meet eyes with a familiar face. Song Enya, who was dressed to the nines with exquisite makeup, walked in with a sachet in her hand. The moment she saw Yoon Shusha, who was sitting in a private room facing her, her gaze changed again and again. Why are you here? Without waiting for Yoon Shusha to react, Song Enya took the lead to question unreasonably. Yoon Shusha fell silent and suddenly had the urge to change restaurants. Song Enya seemed to have an appointment with someone and had arranged to meet here. However, just as she stepped through the door, the two unexpectedly bumped into each other. Song Enya was furious when she saw Yoon Shusha. She had previously heard that Mu Yaja and Yoon Shusha had held a grand engagement ceremony on a private island. At that time, many high-level political figures, political leaders, and presidents of various countries were present. It was especially grand and dignified. He had heard all these from Song Yunshi. Song Yunshi purposely brought up this matter in front of her to provoke her into giving up on the man completely, so that she would no longer harbor any unrealistic thoughts about him. Song Enya did not show much emotion on her face when she heard that, but her heart seemed to be in turmoil. They were actually engaged. She questioned lightly, doesn't the Mu family dislike Yoon Shusha? How could he agree? Song Yunshi said, no one from the Mu family is present. Uncle Mu did it himself without using any of the Mu family's resources. However, what was unexpected was that it was done in such a grand manner. I heard that Uncle Mu racked his brains to create a dreamy beach wedding for that woman. The scene is very romantic and dreamy, just like a fairy tale. Song Yunshi's nonchalant words were like the sharpest icicles, piercing her heart and causing it to bleed. Song Enya was so heartbroken that she could not breathe. She could not take it lying down, even though she knew very well that she might not be able to win Brother Mu's heart even if she did everything she could not let go calmly. She could not take it lying down. All along, she had never said that she could not get what she wanted. Chapter 1909. What right did Yoon Shusha have to have what she could not have? With this thought in mind, Song Enya felt increasingly unbalanced. Hence, she hated Yoon Shusha to the core. The thought of the man she loved hugging another woman and making a solemn promise to her made her hate Yoon Shusha so much that she wished she could disappear from this world without a trace. Song Yunshi had advised her not to have any wishful thinking about Mu Yaja. This was not the first time she had given her such advice. However, Song Enya did not take it to heart. Hence, at this moment, when Yoon Shusha stood before her, Song Enya trembled all over and clenched her fists tightly. She did not know how much effort it took for her to control herself from rushing forward to strangle her. Yoon Shusha, I didn't expect to meet you here. Song Enya smiled and ignored the greetings from her friends. She took a few steps toward Yoon Shusha and sneered. Are you very smug now? Do you think that you can live happily ever after with Brother Mu? I have to hand it to you, you've really played a big game of chess. First, you racked your brains to get close to Brother Mu and got pregnant with his child through dirty means. In the end, she would secretly hide the child by her side. When the time came, she would naturally be able to rely on her child to enjoy the glory and splendor of wealth. Do you think that you can take root in the Mu family with your lowly status? Don't think that you can rest easy just because you're engaged to Brother Mu. Let me tell you, you don't have the right to step into the Mu family. Yoon Shusha knitted her brows in disgust and waved her hand in disgust. What a strong sour taste. Why are you so jealous of me? Song Enya, you can only be jealous of me. Don't tell me that you want to snatch your brother Mu from me. Yoon Shusha paused for a moment. She unrestrainedly enjoyed the look on Song Enya's face and smiled faintly. If you want to snatch him from me, you'll have to see if you have the right to do so. You. Song Enya did not expect Yoon Shusha to reply to her with such an aggressive tone. She was so furious that her shoulders heaved up and down violently as her whole body trembled in anger. A slut will always be a slut. Look. I really hope that Brother Mu is also here, so that he can hear your wild ambitions with his own ears. Don't keep calling me Brother Mu. I remember that according to seniority, you should call him uncle. Then, as your aunt, shouldn't you be a little more respectful? She was the mayor's daughter, yet she had such poor upbringing. She kept saying slut every day. If word got out, it would be very unpleasant. I heard that you graduated from a prestigious school, so you should be well-mannered. I didn't expect you to behave like an unreasonable shrew. Such merciless mockery made Song Enya lose all face. Unable to control her anger, she lost her rationality and strode up to Yoon Shusha. She glared at her condescendingly and scolded, "You shameless slut." As he spoke, he raised his hand and was about to slap Lin Mengya. In the next second, her hand was tightly grasped by a strong hand. "Let go. Who is it?" Song Enya turned around abruptly and sent a palm strike toward her. Chapter 1910. Before Song Enya could see clearly who the person in front of her was, her face was already burning. It was a powerful slap to the face, but it caused everyone present to be fiercely stunned. Mu Yaja pulled her away. Song Enya lost her balance and staggered, falling onto the dining table and sitting on the floor. Even now, she was still in disbelief as she raised her head. However, when she finally saw who the slap came from, she was so wronged that tears instantly filled her eyes. Brother Mu. He actually slapped her. And in front of everyone. The most embarrassing thing for her was that Mu Yaja had slapped her in front of Yoon Shusha. The pain on her face was not even a millionth of the pain in her heart. At that moment, Song Enya's world turned dark and gloomy. She fell to the ground, and her rather embarrassing appearance caused her to lose all her face. She held her aching cheek and tightly pursed her lips. Her trembling lips were simply unable to form a complete word. Why? This is the first time in his life that Brother Mu has been so angry with me for a lowly woman. Why? Why did he embarrass me in front of so many people, especially Yoon Shusha? Is he defending me? Why? Song Enya wanted to cry but had no tears. Her heart was undoubtedly shattered into pieces and she was almost suffocating. Yoon Shusha was also stunned. She glanced at Mu Yaja beside her. At this moment, his handsome face was filled with hostility. His eyes, especially, were soul-stirring and sharp. I remember that I reminded you not to touch her. It was just a simple sentence, but it was frightening. Although it was a low voice, it inexplicably made people shudder. Even Song Enya was so frightened by his terrifying aura that she bit her lip nervously and did not dare to breathe loudly. What she was most afraid of was him when he was angry. That pair of eyes stared at her coldly, as if he was looking at a stranger, or as if he was staring at an abominable face. There was obvious disgust in his eyes. Does he hate me? Don't. Song Enya could no longer hold back her tears. Yo-Yo and Xiao Chen also walked over. Their legs were not as long as Mu Yaja's, so when they rushed over, they happened to hear Mu Yaja's harsh words. When Yo-Yo heard this, he almost clapped his hands and cheered. Daddy is handsome and heroic. This bad woman popped out of nowhere. They had only left for a short while and she was already an eyesore. She didn't know what she had done to Mommy to make Daddy so angry. However, Yo-Yo was comforted by the way her daddy defended her Mommy. Xiao Chen also thought to himself, Daddy is so cool. Whoever bullied Mommy, he had to get back at them. Otherwise, others would think that his Mommy was easy to bully. Song Enya. Xiao Chen sneered inwardly. He hated this woman from the very beginning, especially after their encounter in Fairy Tale Valley. He hated the Song sisters for the rest of his life. The Muse and Songs had some dealings with each other, but now, Xiao Chen pretended not to see the elders of the Song family, which infuriated the Song family. However, his daddy did not say anything, nor did he force him to address those elders. Chapter 1911. Mu Yaja did not embarrass the songs on account of the Jiangs. If not for the fact that the songs were related to the muse, he did not want to embarrass them. When Yun Shusha saw that Mu Yaja had arrived, her heart calmed down and she felt an inexplicable sense of security. She hooked her arm around Mu Yaja's and snorted. She swept a glance at Song Enya, who was on the ground, with a smug look on her face. It was obvious that she was purposely trying to anger the other and flaunt their love in front of her. There was a saying that went, "Flaunting love dies quickly." However, when it was necessary, she still had to declare her sovereignty. Song Enya was so angry that her face turned ashen. She looked like she was about to vomit blood. Yun Shusha's silent humiliation made her feel even more embarrassed. With the help of her friends, she slowly got up from the ground and glared at Yun Shusha. However, just as she glared at her, Mu Yaja's cold gaze landed on her face like a knife. Song Enya was sad and embarrassed. She was so angry that she was at a loss for words. She looked at him with tears in her eyes, but just as she was about to speak, Mu Yaja blocked her with one sentence. "I don't want to see you." These 6 words were enough to make Song Enya deeply understand what it felt like to be heartbroken. She bit her lower lip and muttered timidly, "Brother Mu, do you want me to send someone to chase you away?" Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes dangerously. She knew his character. He meant what he said. She gritted her teeth and weighed the pros and cons. In the end, she decided to leave with dignity. Before she left, she did not forget to glare fiercely at Yun Shusha before leaving in a huff. Yun Shusha muttered, "Unreasonable." Mu Yaja turned his head expressionlessly. She could not help but shrink her shoulders, thinking that he was going to reprimand her for something. After all, she had ruthlessly insulted Song Enya just now. She did not know how much of it he had taken in. Unexpectedly, he smiled helplessly and said, "Little thing, I didn't expect that you would finally do well for once." He could hear her eloquent and aggressive words from afar. Mu Yaja felt very gratified. Yun Shusha blushed. "What do you mean? What do you mean you've finally done well for once?" Yo-Yo sighed and explained, "Stupid mommy, Daddy means that you've finally worked hard for once and didn't let anyone bully you." Yun Shusha, Xiao Ichen pursed his lips and said, "Where did this bad woman come from? How annoying. Isn't it enough for you to harm me? You even came to harm my mommy." Yun Shusha was surprised. "When did she harm you? Let's not talk about the past. Anyway, even I can see that neither of the Song sisters is good." Yo-Yo said coldly from the side, "Mu-Ichen, can't you tell? That woman is obviously trying to snatch Daddy from mommy." "Snatch Daddy?" When Xiao Ichen heard this, he immediately hugged Mu Yaja tightly and said indignantly, "No way, if she wants to snatch Daddy, she'll have to get past me first." Yo-Yo said softly, "There are so many women who want to snatch Daddy from mommy, but mommy is such a blockhead that she doesn't have any sense of danger." Xiao Ichen laughed when he heard this. "That's because mommy